Hello, this is the Stories Beside channel. I release videos every day for you. Subscribe and click the bell.
Adam slowly came to his senses. He didn't understand why his whole body hurt. His back was stiff, and he wanted to turn on his side, but he couldn't. The pain was piercing his body. The man groaned and opened his eyes. "Brother, are you having a hard time?" Adam saw the face of a strange man in front of him. "Be patient, I'll call someone." "Where am I?" My lips were singed. My voice was hoarse and unheard. "You're in the hospital. Don't you remember anything?" That's when the doctor came into the room. "It's good to be awake." He felt the patient's pulse. "Look to your left now, to your right." He fixed the patch on his skin that held the IV tube in place. "Do you remember how it happened?" Vaguely, Adam admitted. "I remember we were on our way to a restaurant. It was my wife's birthday. I booked a table, and then I remember only a bright flash, a bang, and that's it." "Where's Mary? How is she?" He looked anxiously at the doctor. "Your wife was less fortunate than you." "Can I see her?" "No, she's in intensive care. She's in serious condition. She's unconscious right now. But she's going to be okay. It's too early to make any predictions." The doctor was evasive. "But the damage is severe. The spine is crushed. But she will recover. Her life is not threatened now, but to walk." He was silent for a moment. "We don't know yet. We're waiting for her to come to her senses for a thorough examination. Then we'll gather a concilium and give a conclusion." The doctor was silent, then put his hand on Adam's arm, squeezed it, and said sadly, "Be strong. Your wife may never walk again." Mary, the first person to wish the girl a happy birthday, was, of course, her closest friend Adam. He called early in the morning before work. "Happy birthday. I have a surprise for you, but I will tell you about it only in the evening." "That's not fair," Mary said cheerfully. "Now I'll be wondering all day what surprise you have in store for me. You've been giving me riddles on my birthday since childhood. I don't know what to expect from you. Tell me now." "No, I'm waiting for you at our favorite restaurant at 6 o'clock. I'll ask you not to be late." "And that depends," Mary declared. "I have to be the most beautiful tonight. I took a special day off work to get ready." "Try not to be late. I'll be waiting." The girl patiently watched the manicurist and from time to time looked at her watch. Leaving the beauty salon, Mary hurried home. She chose the prettiest dress she could find in her closet. She smiled mischievously at her reflection in the mirror, corrected her lipstick on her lips, called a cab, and in half an hour she was entering the restaurant. Adam could not believe his eyes when he recognized his friend Mary in a searing brunette, in a luxurious dark blue dress, which suited her surprisingly well. Her wavy hair lay loosely on her shoulders. In her hands, a little embarrassed, the beauty clutched a small purse in the tone of the dress. He got up, helped to sit down at the table, and could not take his eyes off the girl, waved to someone. Immediately the waiter appeared with a huge bouquet of scarlet roses. "Happy birthday." Adam handed them to the girl. "There are 25 of them, but even these divine creatures pale before you." "Mary," she said in a voice hoarse with excitement, "you look great. Why do you always wear shapeless clothes? You'd have a lot of suitors." "That's why I'm hiding under the clothes." Mary's brown eyes sparkled. "I don't need a crowd of brainless suitors. It's so cozy here." Looking around, she said. They were sitting at a table that was far away from prying eyes. It was just him, her, and live music. The musicians were playing some jazz composition. The soft velvet voice of a saxophone sounded. "Thank you for inviting me here. Did you order everything?" "Yes, I thought I'd surprise you. After all, today is your first anniversary. It's a quarter of a century." Adam smiled. "Don't remind me of my age." The girl was offended. "It is indecent. I seem to myself an old woman." "Don't talk nonsense. You're younger than me." "Remember, I always defended you in the orphanage. Considered a little sister?" "Of course I remember." There's a shadow on Mary's face. "As long as I can remember, you've always been there for me." "Not since you were transferred to us." The waiter put the bouquet in a vase and poured champagne into glasses. "I propose to drink to you." Adam raised his glass. "I think that if I didn't have you in my life, I would have died a long time ago. You are my best friend." Mary said, taking a sip of wine. "Just a friend." The young man looked at her over the glass, then put it on the table, took out a small box from his jacket pocket, opened it, and Mary saw a gold ring on a velvet cushion. "I haven't been your friend for a long time." The girl looked at him fearfully. "At some point I realized I didn't want to be one." "I love you." "I've been meaning to say it for a long time, but I was afraid you'd laugh at me. Today I thought it was time to tell you. I don't know how you'll feel about it, but I can't keep quiet anymore. I want you to know how I really feel about you. We are not little children anymore. I have not perceived you as a sister for a long time, but you are closer than the closest relatives that neither you nor I have ever had. If I mean anything in your life, I'll be the happiest man in the world. If you tell me to leave, I'll leave, and I'll never hurt your feelings again. You know I'd do anything for you, even silence my heart. I'll do it if I have to give way to another." There was an awkward silence. Mary stared mesmerized at the ring, then raised her head, met Adam's eyes. He was waiting tensely. "We've known each other for 1,000 years. I know all your habits. I know your secrets." "I get it." The boy lowered his head. "For you I was and will remain forever only a friend." "Fool," Mary said affectionately, and she put her hand on his, tears of joy glistening in her eyes. "I was afraid to confess that I love you not with sisterly love. Every day it became more and more difficult to hide my feelings. You seemed so uncriminal, cold, and indifferent, and I enjoyed your every touch. While you could not see, I was looking at every wrinkle on your face. I thought you would hate me if I confessed my feelings. How stupid are we both?" Adam put the ring on the girl's finger. "I thought the same thing. But you never showed me the signs of attention that a girl usually shows when she loves. I was afraid that you would avoid me, and then I would lose the opportunity of seeing you even from afar. Will you marry me?" "Yes, I'll marry you. And we'll have the family we never had." "To family." Adam raised his glass, drank a little. "I think we should have the wedding here. Do you mind?" "No, I'm relying on you for everything. This is our favorite restaurant. Do you remember our first event here?" "I remember when we started our own firm. And then we came here every time we wanted to be alone and talk about nothing. We'll make arrangements with the owner of the restaurant, so we should start getting ready. First of all, order an invitation." "I'm very happy, Adam," Mary said softly. "And I am, because from today we will start a new life," answered the young man. "I have you and you have me. We have always had each other." That evening, walking his beloved home, Adam did not go to her. "Shall we wait until the wedding?" Smiling, he said in response to Mary's silent question, "I would really like to spend tonight with you." "Let's not be in a hurry." Mary was grateful for that. She didn't want to ruin the magic of the evening. In the morning, Adam picked up the girl and they went to work together. Mary admired her chosen one all the way. She couldn't take her eyes off his curly red hair. She enjoyed looking at his masculine profile. She knew that when he smiled, his cheeks would show touching dimples. "You're about to drill a hole in me with your gaze." Adam laughed, gently looking at his bride. "You're distracting me from the road. I can't drive in peace. I like looking at you." Mary confessed, embarrassed. "I really want to be your wife soon, and I'm your husband." The office buzzed like a beehive when the young people announced their decision to marry. They were no longer afraid to openly confess their feelings. "I knew there was something going on between you two." A coworker remarked, "It would be strange not to notice if Mary stopped even breathing when Adam entered the office." Chuckled another, "You're making things up as you go along right now." Mary blushed. "There was nothing of the sort. It was you who didn't notice how you were eating each other with your eyes, and it was very clear to us from the outside." Adam's friend joined the conversation. The wedding was fun. The few guests had fun from the heart. The bride and groom had no relatives, only friends and coworkers. "Guys, you are so good. We are so happy for you." Guests came up to the newly married husband and wife, all very well organized. "Cheerfully dancing to the music," said others. "Toastmaster at you, just fire," declared the third. At the end of the evening, tired but satisfied guests began to go home. "And where will you go on a wedding trip?" someone asked. "We decided to postpone it until next year." Adam said, "Yes, and the place has not been determined. While we think about everything, save up money and go on vacation to the fullest." After seeing off the last guests who didn't want to say goodbye to the newlyweds, Mary asked in a cab, "Where shall we go, to your place or mine?" "I have a more interesting place." The young man answered mysteriously. The car stopped in front of the hotel. The young husband led his wife to the honeymoon suite. "Adam," Mary gasped, "how romantic! And candles and flowers, how beautiful! When did you have time to prepare everything?" "I wanted our first wedding night to be remembered forever." He answered simply, "We'll tell our children how good we were together." They fell asleep only in the morning, hugging each other tightly. From that day on, their quiet, happy married life began. "Adam," Mary marveled, "you and I don't even have anything to quarrel about. If you don't listen to people you know, they only have time to throw frying pans at each other or to divide their possessions. We have nothing to divide." "Reasonably," answered the man, "you and I have known each other since childhood, and they. There is your first friend. Before the wedding with her husband, only 3 months were acquainted. Is it possible for such a short period of time to really know who is who? And who's worth what? By the time they get to know each other, they'll be divorced. That's why." Kissing her husband, the young woman said, "That I can't live without you. I have the feeling that we have one on two lungs. Listen to my heart." Mary pressed Adam's palm to her breast. "Can you hear it beating in unison? You and I are two halves of the same heart. Don't make it up." Adam grinned, but in his heart he thought the same thing. "I wish we could have a baby." Mary was sadly silent. "But I can't do it. And what if I can never give you an hair?" She raised her head anxiously. "It happens in life. Do not think about it." Kissing his wife, consoled the man. "We will have everything, and if we cannot get their own, we can always take from the orphanage. We know what it's like to live without parents, right? There's still time. We can take it slow for a couple years. While business is booming, maybe it's for the best, don't you think? I just wish we could have a baby as soon as possible," she sighed. Secretly from her husband, Mary was examined at the clinic. "Woman," the doctor reassured her, "there's nothing wrong with you. Apparently, your body isn't ready for a baby yet. Let it go. Enjoy your marriage. Don't obsess about the baby. You just have to wait. All in good time." But Mary couldn't bear the thought of not being a mom. It became her obsession. Every month she hoped that the first signs of the long-awaited pregnancy would appear, but every time she was disappointed. Adam. She urged her husband, "You should get a checkup too." "I'll tell you what." The man couldn't take it anymore. "Let's go on vacation. You're just tired. We never got to go on our honeymoon." "Why don't we take at least a week off and get away from the city? We've never been to the seaside together. Can you imagine how nice it would be to watch the sunrise and sunset by the sea?" Mary. Her husband took her in his arms. "I want to see how you splash in the waves, how your body gradually becomes bronze from the tan, and kiss your salty from the seawater lips. Put me on my feet." Laughed the happy wife. "I want to kiss you under the splash of sea waves and forget about projects, contracts, and competitors for a week. I love you." They went away from the bustle of the city. Their bungalow was not far from the sea. In the evenings, they sat on the beach and listened to the waves whispering as they saw off the day. Here, time seemed to stop. They enjoyed each other, forgetting everything in the world. "Why the week flew by so quickly, how I don't want to go back," Mary said regretfully as she packed her things. "I would have stayed here forever. And soon you'd get bored with me, and you'd leave me for some tanned macho who walks the beach in droves." Adam picked up on that. "No way," objected the woman. "I'd never leave you. Your red curls have turned copper here. They'll remind me of the bright southern sun. Is it possible to apply them to something more romantic?" Returning home, the young ones plunged headlong into their work. The woman listened to herself with a sinking heart, waiting for some changes in the body, but nothing happened. She was ready to resign herself to the idea that she would never get pregnant. "Kelly," she complained to her friend, "I was so hopeful that I could get pregnant there, and then I failed again. How frustrating!" Adam doesn't say it out loud, but I can feel that he's expecting me to have an hair. "Don't make it up," carelessly said the woman. "Adam, you're on the contrary, I think, is not very eager to become a father. He just started to raise the business. You've moved this thing together. If you fall out of the ranks, it will be very hard for him alone. Don't be sad, my friend. All things work out for the best. It's been a year." Mary's next birthday was to be celebrated at their favorite restaurant. Dressed up, beautiful, went to the celebration where they were already waiting for guests. "I can't even believe that in 2 days we are going on vacation." "I was glad, Mary. You're finally getting your mind off your work. Good for you for persuading me to buy the vouchers, or I wouldn't have dared to drop everything and go away. A year from now, we'll be on our honeymoon." "What the hell?" Adam suddenly cried out, blinded by a bright flash of light. A second, and from the terrible impact, the car shuddered. The last thing the man remembered was Mary's cry of pain. Then darkness fell. Adam woke up. His head ached, his body was stiff, and the smell of medicine hit his nose. He tried to turn onto his other side, groaned, and opened his eyes. An unfamiliar man, about 45 years old with a plastered leg, looked at him sympathetically. "Brother, are you having a hard time?" "Be patient, I'll call someone." He carefully slid off the bed, grabbed his crutches, jumped to the exit. "Where am I?" Adam could barely get his lumpy lips apart. "In the hospital. Don't you remember anything?" "I do. I don't remember how I got here." "Nurse," shouted the man, opening the door to the corridor. "Call the doctor. The neighbors awake?" "Good thing you're awake," cheerfully said the doctor, vigorously entering the room. "Okay." Feeling his wrist, he stretched out. "Pulse is normal. Look at me. Do you remember your name?" "What happened before you passed out?" "Yeah, I remember everything. My wife and I were on our way to a restaurant for her birthday, and then there was a flash, a bump, and then I don't remember anything else." Where's my wife? You were in a car accident. The doctor said gloomily. You were lucky, but your wife was. Is she alive? Adam asked with horror, lurching forward and grabbing the man's arm. She's alive, in intensive care. She took the brunt of it. The prognosis is not good. However, we'll wait until she regains consciousness. Right now, she's unconscious. Then we'll decide what to do next. Doctor. The patient begged in a belittling tone. I want to see her. No. He waved his hands and stood up. They won't let you into the intensive care unit, and you've just come to your senses. Tell me, who can I tell that you're in the hospital? We don't have anyone. Adam answered, I'm her closest relative. We are together from the orphanage. There is no one closer. All right, have it your way, nodded the doctor. I'll tell the nurses to take her to her. A few minutes later, the door to the room opened and two young, laughing nurses wheeled in a wheelchair. Are you the one who needs to be escorted to the intensive care unit? Asked one of the girls. Yes, Adam said. The girls helped him into the chair and, laughing and talking about something among themselves, rolled the man through the corridors of the hospital. Adam waited with bated breath to meet his beloved. He thought he was ready for any surprise, but still he could not control his emotions when he saw Mary, pale, wrapped in tubes on the hospital bed. My darling, whispered the man, snuggled into her hand, kissed her. Tears came to his eyes. The girls looked at each other and left the room, leaving him alone with his wife. Don't leave me. I can't live without you. I'll do anything. You just live. I beg you. Adam, muffled sobbing. He stroked her head, wrapped in bandages, held her hand and whispered, I love you so much, you wouldn't dare leave me. Lord, make my wife come to her senses. He begged, we have only found happiness together. Don't take her away from me. Take my life, but don't let her die. The serene husband suddenly felt Mary squeeze his hand, weakly, but squeezing Mary. He stirred, looking hopefully into her face. Look at me. I knew you wouldn't give up. Hey, somebody. He shouted, swinging the ward doors open into the hallway. My wife's awake. Immediately, the doctor and nurses came running in. Adam was forced out of the room. He tried to object, but no one listened to him. Back in his room, Adam turned his back to the wall and fell asleep. His neighbor tried to talk to him, but the man was silent, so he made no further attempts to find out anything about Mary. Tell me, how's my wife? He asked his doctor that evening. I can't say anything yet. He was evasive. We'll see. We'll keep an eye on her. She's in serious condition. We'll gather a concilium, and then we'll tell you everything. You can start walking tomorrow, but don't work too hard, so it doesn't get worse. Your wife will really need your support. A couple of days later, we learned that Mary had a serious spinal injury. She would need several operations before there was any hope of her being able to walk. Adam sat in his room for a long time, hesitant to go to his wife. He didn't know what to say to her, how to comfort her. But he realized that a difficult conversation could not be avoided. Finally, he resolutely got up and went to the next ward. Hi. Entering the ward, the man spoke. Mary did not even turn her head at the voice of her husband. Adam saw that she was crying. Hey, what are you doing? He leaned over to her and kissed her cheek, then took a chair and sat down next to her bed. What's wrong? What happened? Turning her tear-drenched face toward her husband, shouted Mary, Are you kidding me? I'll never be able to walk again. And you ask me what happened? My life is over. Turning away from Adam, Mary cried quietly. But nothing is clear yet. tried to set his wife on a good wave man. They haven't had a consultation yet. They're waiting for a neurosurgeon, and in the end, he took her hand and gently stroked it. The technology is so advanced now, they'll put anyone back on their feet. Why are you reassuring me? No technology can make my body move. If my basic motor functions are destroyed, I'm a cripple. It's time to face that fact. I'm bedridden for life. Listen, she grabbed her husband's hands and spoke, hurriedly, swallowing her words. Leave me alone, leave me alone. Why do you need me like this? I'm no longer a human being. I can't bear you children. I can't look after the house. I can't do anything anymore. Don't you realize I'm gone? I'm dead. I'm half human. Doesn't it frighten you to have to carry the ship after me? Listening to me moan in pain? You'll be at work all the time, and I'll have to stay inside 4 walls all the time. Why would you want me like that? She leaned back on the pillow and closed her eyes in exhaustion, equalizing her breathing. Go away, Mary said sharply. I don't want to see you. Did you say everything? Adam asked calmly. Now listen to me. If I were in your place, would you leave me? No. Mary opened her eyes. In them, the man read sincere indignation at such a question. No way in the world. I can't leave you either. Satisfied, he remarked, and that I will never hear such talk again. We'll fight together. We'll wait to see what the neurosurgeon says. Don't forget the examples when doctors were wrong and people got back on their feet against all odds. We can do this. I don't want to be a burden to you. I'm afraid to see the pity in your eyes. I want to die, do you understand? Stop your hysterics, he shouted at her, angry. His gray eyes blazed with anger. Pull yourself together. If we're alive, it's the right thing to do. I believe in you. Even if there's 1 chance in 100 that you'll get back on your feet, we'll fight. We've got money. We'll get any doctor we want, even from abroad. I won't let you give up. I'll go to my room. I'll be discharged soon, and you get ready to fight. Adam left the room, leaving his wife at a loss. He realized that he could not convince her to the end, but he had no right to retreat. The conversation was hard for him. He had almost no strength left. He sat down on a bench in the room to catch his breath. He was afraid even to admit to himself that he was not completely sure of what he had said to his wife, but he could not do otherwise. The next day, he was invited to the residence room, where all the doctors were gathered to make a definitive diagnosis and decide what to do with Mary. Adam, the neurosurgeon began, there's no consolation. Your wife is a paraplegic. Spinal cord injury, nerve damage in 6 places. She's gonna need a major surgery in more than 1. There's no guarantee of a positive outcome. There's a good chance Mary will never walk again. But is there any chance? The man asked slowly. Very slim. The doctor said regretfully. It would take a real miracle for her to walk. The rehabilitation process is very long and painful. I suggest patience and money. Retrofit your house to be wheelchair accessible and adjust, live with it. Right now, no one can give you a guarantee that the effort will not be in vain. Tears flowed from Adam's eyes. He hadn't even expected it himself. The last time he had cried was at the orphanage. Adam felt like a wounded animal cornered. I don't believe there's nothing that can be done about it. Stubbornly, he declared, wiping away his tears and embarrassed by the display of his own weakness. Mary is a real fighter. She can overcome anything. We could use that kind of confidence. The doctor grinned bitterly, looking at the man understandingly. Anyway, we'll try to do something. If it doesn't work, don't be sorry. We're human beings, not gods. Hire a professional nurse to help your wife. A week later, Mary had her first surgery. The results were not what the doctors had planned. The decision was made to do another one in 2 weeks, then another. Over the course of a year, Mary underwent 6 surgeries. "Well, Mary?" Examining the woman, the doctor said, "Positive dynamics on the face. We have returned sensitivity to the legs." He asked her to move her toes, helped her to bend and straighten her legs at the knees. "You can see you can move them a little bit." "But I still can't walk." Frustrated, she remarked, "Tell me, doctor?" With hope in her voice, Mary asked, "Will I be able to walk like before?" "I didn't want to tell you yet." The doctor hesitated, pretending to scrutinize her scans, but tried not to meet her eyes. "We're not talking about a full recovery yet." I emphasize, he hastened to reassure her, seeing how the woman's face changed. "Not yet." "But why?" Mary exclaimed in despair. "You said yourself there was progress, didn't you?" "You see," the doctor hesitated. "The latest scan showed that you have a tumor on your spine. We need more tests to find out whether it's operable or not, but we can't do another operation now. You're too weak to tolerate it. We have to wait." "No," the woman whispered, her lips trembling and tears streaming from her eyes. "Is this a judgment? I'll never walk again?" "No, don't say that." The doctor spoke hotly, but there was no certainty in his eyes. "We'll find out what the tumor is. You'll get a little stronger, and then I want to be alone." Mary closed her eyes with her hand, showing that she didn't want to talk anymore. The man sat silent for a few seconds, then stood up. The woman heard the chair legs creak sadly on the tiled floor. When the door closed behind the doctor, she pulled her cell phone out from under her pillow and called her husband. "Adam, I want you to take me home. I don't want to be here anymore." Then she called the nurse. "What's wrong?" The girl in the white coat asked worriedly. "It's wrong." The woman answered briefly. "Tell the doctor that I am refusing further treatment and going home to my husband. But the treatment has just begun." The nurse objected. "You can't interrupt the rehabilitation course, otherwise all your efforts will come to naught." "Effort is useless to me, and I can go to rehab lying in my bed. I can no longer hear that medicine is powerless in my case. Leave me alone." The paperwork was done quickly. Mary thought the doctor sighed with relief when she announced her decision to go home. Adam was waiting for her by the car, leaned over, awkwardly, gave her a hug and a kiss. Mary did not respond to the tenderness, watching indifferently. Her husband seated her first in the passenger compartment, then put the stroller in the trunk. "Why is the mood gloomy?" Adam tried to cheer her up. "I have a surprise for you." "I don't want any surprises." "Don't you understand? I have no chance of recovery." Angrily, she replied, "Of course you feel good." Mary thought irritably, "You're on your feet, and I can't even go to the bathroom." "Don't talk nonsense." The man cut her off. "There's a chance, even one, but there's a chance. Don't you dare give up. Where are we going?" Not listening to her husband, Mary asked, noticing that they were going in an unknown direction. "I said surprise." Smiled enigmatically at her husband. "Why all the riddles? I want to go home. I want peace and quiet." "Everything will be. Be patient a little." "Reconciliatory," said Adam. "What is it?" The woman asked as her husband stopped the car at an unfamiliar house. They drove up to the gate, which began to open automatically. Mary looked at her husband in surprise, and the car entered the yard. The yard was large, with a lawn and a small garden. In the distance you could see a swimming pool, not far from it a gazebo. The house itself was 1 story, but big. She liked the garden. Her eyes lit up when she saw the rosemary. She adored flowers. Even on the windowsill in the apartment, she grew them. "This is our home," the man said proudly. "I decided that it would be more convenient for us to live in the house. Don't you mind? We'll walk in the garden in the evenings and drink tea." Adam deftly sat his wife in the armchair. She had never been full, and in the hospital she had lost even more weight, became weightless, like a fluff ball, and rolled to the entrance. The porch was accessed by a convenient ramp, and the door opened automatically when the man put the key to the lock. The hallway light came on at once, so there was no need to fumble in the dark for the light switch. There were no thresholds, so the stroller rolled easily into the living room. "Look how cozy it is here. You can move freely through the rooms. I asked to remove all obstacles, and the kitchen? Every housewife's dream." He rolled the stroller into the kitchen. "No top drawers. You can reach everything by hand. You don't even have to get up. So you're sure I'm in this damn chair for the long haul?" Mary caught on to a phrase that sounded ambiguous. "Did you have everything ready so that I'd be comfortable in this damn chair for the rest of my life?" The woman began to beat her hands on the armrests, sobbing, tears streaming from her eyes. She waved them in her face. Mary confusedly looked at his wife's hysterics at him, not knowing what to do. "Calm down. I did everything to make you comfortable at first while you were recovering." He knelt in front of her and hugged her, trying to stop the shivers that made her whole body shudder. "It's going to be all right. Trust me. We'll find a domestic helper for you. Anything you can't do, she'll do. Look at our house. You like it. I saw your eyes light up when you saw the roses. I wanted to do something nice for you. I'm sorry." Mary finally spoke. "I should have thanked you for your concern, and instead I threw a tantrum." She stroked her husband's head. "Of course I like it here. It's cozy. You haven't seen everything yet." Adam looked at his wife. "Let me show you the rooms." He got up and rolled the stroller. "Look, we have 3 bedrooms." Opening one door after another, the man told her. "Here is the nursery, and this is the servant's room." He knocked. On the threshold appeared a nice-looking woman about 50 years old, not tall, brown eyes, carefully looked at the young woman. A mop of black hair with sparse gray hair was carefully arranged in an unpretentious hairstyle. Taut, dressed in an ironed uniform, she had an air of authority about her. "Meet Clara, our au pair Clara." Adam addressed the woman. "Dinner can be served." She nodded and hurried into the kitchen. "Why do I need an au pair?" Mary asked. "You're not yet strong after the hospital." The man explained patiently. "And I spend a lot of time at work. The house is big. It will be difficult for you to cope with cleaning. You'd think I could use an extra set of hands, wouldn't you? Let's go to the dining room. Clara is a great cook." Life went on as usual. Mary calmed down a bit and gradually adjusted to her new position. She became almost the same old Mary, except that she couldn't walk. Sometimes she got around with the help of skinny legs, but not much at all. Her legs got tired very quickly. "Mary," one day Clara suggested, with compassion, seeing how her mistress was suffering in the evenings from the pains in her legs. "Why don't I give you a massage?" "A massage?" The woman was surprised. "Do you know how to massage?" "A little." The assistant answered evasively. She could not admit that she had worked as a medic all her life. The boss forbade to mention it, but one of the conditions of employment was the ability to care for the disabled. "It's not a medical massage, it's a soothing massage that anyone can do." "All right, try it." Mary agreed. The pain did not let her sleep for a long time. She took pills, but they helped only for a while, and then the pain returned. "Lucky you and your husband." Massaging her feet, the woman said. Everything in the house is so well thought out. Yes, lucky. Mary confirmed. Only he's working late. Well, a house like this requires a lot of investment. I see you work too. Yes, I can work from home now. It's very convenient. You should get some exercise for your legs. Why don't we try the walker tomorrow? I saw them in your room. I'm afraid I can't do that. The young woman hesitated. If you don't exercise your legs, your muscles will atrophy. Exercise wouldn't hurt either. What am I doing with all this? I'll never walk. No one knows the full extent of their body's latent potential. If you don't exercise, you won't be able to stand on your feet. Mary listened to her assistant with interest. She spoke very persuasively, and the young mistress slowly began to move around the house on a walker. It was hard for her, but she did not allow herself to be lazy. Clara gave her a massage every evening, which really helped with the soreness. Sometimes they lingered over a cup of tea, waiting for Adam. Mary liked Clara. She was simple, kind, and very pleasant to talk to. That, of course, was none of my business. One day, an elderly woman cautiously asked, "But why don't your relatives visit you?" "We don't have any," Mary replied simply. "Adam and I grew up in an orphanage. We met when we were very young and never managed to part." The woman laughed. "We were glued to each other. And you don't know anything about your parents?" "No. My father left my middle name, and my mother left me when I was born." "And you never wanted to find her?" "I did, especially when I was 16. I wanted to find out why she left me, but then I changed my mind. What could I say to her when I met her? 'Hello, Mom, and you're the reason my whole life is screwed up.' That I'd hate her all my life. That I'd never forgive her for betraying me. That is despicable. To have a baby and then get rid of it. But there could have been reasons beyond her control. There could have been, but there weren't. She was just afraid of the responsibility, and she'd get what she deserved." And so, day by day, 6 months passed after Mary returned from the hospital to her new home. "Honey, I'm going to work." One morning, Adam looked into his wife's bedroom. They slept separately, the man's explanation being that he was afraid of hurting her at night with an awkward movement. In the evenings, when he returned from work, he came to her and put her to bed like a little girl, but he always went to his room to sleep. "Mary, what's the matter with you?" He noticed with alarm the dead pallor on his wife's face. She usually greeted him with a smile, but here she didn't even open her eyes. "Are you ill?" "My whole body hurts. I can't move." The woman struggled to speak, writhing in pain. "I'll call Clara, or better yet, I'll call your doctor." "You know what?" decisively declared the husband. "I'm going to call work, and I'm not going anywhere today. Bear with me for a while. I'll get some painkillers." A minute later, Clara came into the room. "Where's the discomfort?" Handing me a glass of water and a pill, she asked. "Everywhere. I can't move my arm or leg, and my eyes are blurry." "Nothing, the doctor will come and will explain everything." Adam called the doctor, and he didn't wait long. "It's probably just a temporary deterioration. I can't explain what's causing it. I'll prescribe some medication, we'll try it. If it doesn't work, call me and we'll find another one." Probably on his way out of the bedroom, the doctor told a dejected Adam, "It's related to the tumor. It will progress if not treated properly. There's no telling how it will end." There was no improvement. After a week, my legs stopped working, and after a while, my arms started to fail. "Mary, you must pull yourself together and at least eat," Clara urged her. "Why?" the woman asked. "I want to die. I'm lying here like a log. All I can do is eat. Even my husband won't come home from work. He has a lot of work to do." The au pair stood up for the owner. Do you believe what you're saying? He used to stay out late when I could still walk, and now he's got a lot of work to do. I suspect that Job is a long-legged, blonde, model-looking woman. What are you talking about? Clara spoke reproachfully. Adam loves you. He would never trade you for anyone else. He's a man. He wants a healthy woman, not a cripple. I'd rather he left me than lie in bed like this wondering who he's spending his time with. Clara looked at the young mistress with pain. She understood that she had to fight, but she saw that Mary put her hands down and did not even try to do something. Don't get yourself worked up. Your husband will never betray you. Everyone betrays, and he is no exception. You can't give up. You're strong. The woman tried to reason with the landlady, but all attempts to talk to her were to no avail. One day, when Clara was returning from shopping, she took a cab to the house and saw a man in his 60s near the gate. He was trying to peek over the fence. The woman was wary. Who was this guy? Where did he come from here? And what is he sniffing around? Where are the guards? This is an upscale community and no strangers come here. How did he get in here? I'll complain to Adam today so he can find out who let him in. What do you want here, man? Clara asked sternly. You'd better leave and not have to call security. I'm looking for Mary. I was told she lived here. I called, but no one answered because no one will answer the door but me. The woman spoke in a nonchalant tone as she turned the key in the lock. Are you from this house? The stranger rejoiced. Do you know where the landlady is? I really need to meet her, if you can help me. Yeah, I work with this family. Why do you want to see her? The woman asked. She looked suspiciously at the stranger from head to toe. He looked intelligent, not like a crook. At first glance, he can be trusted. At least you can listen to him. Anyway, he will not let go. I have a serious conversation with her. Unless you tell me what I want from my mistress, I won't let you in the house. Clara stood firmly in the way of the uninvited guest. I'm Mary's own father. You are. The woman exclaimed in amazement. Well then, come into the house. Will you have coffee? I'd love some. My name is William Mikhailovich. To whom do I have the honor to speak? I'm Clara, the au pair. Well, where have you been, father? Clara asked mockingly, setting the table. When your daughter was in the orphanage, when she was suffering and needed a family member. Why did you only show up now? Maybe you're trying to collect child support. It's fashionable now to put adult children on your neck. I understand your indignation. The uninvited guest spoke conciliatingly, stirring with a spoon in a cup of coffee. But I learned of her existence only 2 months ago. I rushed to look for her, but it wasn't easy. At the old, how did you know about Mary if you weren't interested in your ex-lover's life? I got a call from her sister saying that Evelyn wanted to meet. I was surprised because we hadn't spoken in years. I had no idea where she was. Who was she with? The sister sent the address, and I was shocked when I realized it was a hospice. I rushed there, and it turned out Evelyn had cancer, terminal. The man was silent. Clara could see that it was not easy for him to talk about it. Unfortunately, there was nothing I could do to help her. Do you still love her? No. William shook his head negatively. My heart was tired of waiting. I felt sorry for her. There was no trace of the searing brunette beauty I had once loved. The disease had done its terrible work. Evelyn had lost weight, there was no blood on her pale face, and her eyes were filled with resignation to her fate. She was glad when she saw me. William plunged into memories. The woman didn't dare interrupt. William, did you come after all? Evelyn whispered excitedly. Her eyes, dimmed by the realization of inevitability, flashed for a moment. I was afraid you wouldn't make it. I don't have long to go. Evelyn, if I had known you were sick, I would have helped you. Don't say anything, she stopped him. This is my punishment for keeping our daughter from you. What? What daughter? Mary. Her name is Mary. She's 26 years old. Where is she? And why are you here and not with her? I'm telling you, I'm being punished for what I did. I left her in an orphanage. But why? William cried out. Why didn't you tell me you were having a baby? I was afraid you wouldn't believe me. I was unfaithful to you then. Chased after a successful and rich man, and when he found out I was pregnant, he didn't stick around for a minute. Where was I supposed to go? I was young and stupid. I didn't know how to love and appreciate what I had. Why didn't you look for me? I would have helped you. I wouldn't have left you alone. I went far away on purpose not to interfere with your happiness, but if I had known that you were expecting our child, I would have come even to the ends of the earth. I didn't even think about it, and I was ashamed. The woman closed her eyes. The conversation was taking a lot of energy. After a moment, she looked at William again and said, It's too late to apologize. I wrote you the address of the orphanage where I left my daughter. She held out a quadruple folded piece of paper. She has my last name, but I gave her your middle name. Find our daughter, apologize for me. I am very guilty before her, before you. I don't know how her life turned out. Tell her that I gave her to the orphanage, not because I didn't love her, but because I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to put her on her feet on my own. I need her to know that. Promise me you'll find her? Evelyn asked. I will, nodded William. He took her thin hand in his and squeezed it. She responded weakly to the handshake. Forgive me, I ruined everything only here. I realized that I have lost my true love, chasing after phantom happiness. I believed that wealth was what a man should strive for. And now I realize that money can corrupt the soul, but not save it. I believe that our daughter grew up a good man, like her father. A tear rolled down her cheek. Now leave me alone. I'm tired. The woman closed her eyes. William sat a little longer, got up beside her, and went to the exit. He opened the door, but couldn't hold it open. He looked back one last time and glanced at the woman he had once loved madly. Then I quietly closed the door behind me, so as not to disturb her. I immediately went in search of Mary. William continued, awakening from his memories. And here I am, and I want to see her. I must tell her everything I promised her mother. She has a right to know that she is not alone in the world. I don't know if she'll want to see you, especially now. Clara hesitated. I doubt she'll be happy to hear the news. It's not my fault. I didn't even know she existed. I'll explain everything. She'll understand. She can't not understand, the man said with conviction. Then asked, You emphasized, especially now. Is Mary in trouble? That's not the word. She and her husband had been in a car accident. Adam had already returned to work, and Mary had been bedridden for over a year and had recently taken a turn for the worse. Just as the woman uttered these words, a bell rang from the landlady's room. I must go. Clara hurried out. If you can help, come with me, but don't tell me who you really are. You're just a doctor for now, especially since we desperately need a doctor. Be patient. When the time is right, we'll tell her you're her father. Mary was breathing hard, pain frozen on her face. Get me a doctor, the young woman asked. William entered Mary's room, followed by Clara. This was not how he had envisioned his first meeting with his daughter, but now the situation was such that there was no choice. He walked over to the bed and looked at his only child, who was melting before his eyes. His father's heart ached, but now he had to pull himself together and try to do something to help her. First, however, it was necessary to find out how irreversible the consequences of the accident were. Mary, leaving in Clara, "I'd like you to meet Dr. William. He's going to help you." "Who are you?" "I don't know you." Mary looked at the stranger, eyes clouded with pain. "Really, a doctor?" "Yes, I'm going to help you now." He pressed some points on her arms and legs. Mary felt an electric shock. She cried out. The pain was unbearable, but the man's hands were warm, caressing. It seemed to her that from his touch, it was as if the pain had encountered some obstacle, and suddenly it began to recede. Her exhausted body still suffered, and the painful sensation dulled. "Do you feel better?" The young woman heard. "Yes," listening to herself, she answered. She still couldn't believe that the pain that had tormented her for so long had finally disappeared, leaving the heaviness in her body and on her forehead. "Are you a wizard?" Mary whispered gratefully, looking at the man. "No, I'm a doctor. I deal with difficult patients like you. Usually after my treatment, people get back on their feet. Not in my case. It was made clear to me that I was doomed. Not long ago I could move around a little, but now I'm bedridden. I want to die so I don't have to torture anyone. Even my husband shuns me, saying he's working, but he's probably already married another woman. Why would he want a cripple?" "Mary," Clara said reproachfully, "it's not true. Your husband loves you, and he stays late because he needs money for your rehabilitation abroad. He works for two. If there were 48 hours in a day, he would not have enough. Why do I need rehab? My arms and legs won't move. Soon I won't be able to eat. Then I won't be able to breathe. I have a tumor in my spine. I wish you'd put me out of my misery. I'm tired of the pain. It goes away for a while, gives me a break, and then it comes back. You don't know what agony this is?" "Ladies, William has stepped in. I'd like to see the doctor's report and the latest spinal scans." Clara handed him the weighty medical records. He scrutinized the doctor's notes in handwriting that was incomprehensible to the average eye and frowned. "I can help you." Finally, he said, "You will walk if you trust me and have patience. Listen to me very carefully. You need a good course of chiropractic massage, special exercises, some medication, and a carload of patience, and I promise you will walk. I know what I'm talking about, and I'm confident of a favorable outcome." "Are you mocking me now?" Mary asked irritably. "All the doctors say with one voice that I have no chance of recovery. And you come in all smart from the street and say the opposite? Why promise something you can never do? Why give me false hope again? I don't want and won't torture myself with courses of therapy. The outcome will be the same. You have just felt the power of acupressure. You are talking to me calmly, and a few minutes ago, you were nauseated with pain. Have you forgotten?" Ashamed of her words, the woman remained silent. "Would you like me to prove to you right now that the sensation in your legs is not completely lost?" William pressed the points on her feet again, and Mary thought for a moment that she could actually feel her toes. This can't be happening. The woman looked at the stranger with wide-open eyes and was afraid to believe the hope she had just had of returning to normal life. "What about the tumor?" "It's causing my arms and legs to shut down. I'm not sure of the diagnosis. I'll need more tests, but that's for later." "So are we going to get better?" "Yes, then promise to obey me in everything. Don't break the regimen, no matter how much you want to quit, and stick to the instructions." "I agree. How much will I owe you for the treatment?" "I don't think your services are cheap. It'll be free for you. I'm conducting an experiment on you. If everything works out, and we will, I can patent my method of restoring the hopelessly ill. That's worth a lot of money. Clara, Mary turned to her assistant. Don't say anything to your husband. When I'm back on my feet, I'll tell him myself. I want to surprise him. But we can't keep a strange man in the house from him for long, can we? Unsure, said the old woman. We will not hide anything. He works from dawn to dusk anyway. If you don't talk, Adam won't know anything until later. The arduous rehabilitation process began. William really turned out to be a doctor from God, and after 2 weeks through sweat and tears, Mary showed the first signs of improvement. Cheerful, she looked forward to every visit from the doctor. She idolized him and didn't complain, even if it was unbearable to endure the pain. The only thing that discouraged her was her husband's constant delays at work. Mary? Called Adam. On one of the dreary evenings Mary had been alone lately. I'm going to have to spend the night at work. You'll have to excuse me. I'm on deadline. You must realize I'm a two-man job. I can't do it. I'll try to get off early tomorrow. Don't miss me. He said, You promised you wouldn't leave me alone, didn't you? But you're not alone. Clara is with you. Understand that success depends on the speed of the order. I can't just drop everything and rush home. You're not a little girl, you must understand. I'll earn a lot of money, and we'll go abroad to the best doctors. I want to see you healthy and smiling again. To make it so, you'll have to suffer some inconveniences. I won't waste any time, bye. I love you very much, the husband said in a cursive voice and hung up the phone. Mary cried half the night. With only one thought in her mind, he has another. Of course, how long can one put up with a cripple? He's young, he needs a woman, and what can I give him? I can't even give him a child. I can't do anything. How can I keep a man when I'm lying here like a log? I'm just talking. Mary, did you sleep badly last night? Asked William, noticing in the morning the unhealthy pallor of the face and reddened with tears the eyes of his patient. He could see that she was in no mood to study. Maybe we shouldn't have class today. We can't do anything without a treatment mindset. No, the woman said stubbornly. Let's not interrupt. Don't mind her. Tell me, did your husband upset you? How did you know? Mary looked at him suspiciously. It's obvious. The man shrugged his shoulders. You haven't slept much the night before. You don't smile. You have a dull look in your eyes. Can you tell me what's bothering you? Maybe I can help you? I am a man, after all. I can explain Adam's behavior from my point of view. I'm ashamed to say this, but I think Adam has another woman. What makes you think that? William was stunned. He's been spending a lot of time at work, and last night, he didn't come home for the night. It's never happened before. But he warned you. Yes, he phoned, said it was an emergency. I'm guessing that's just your guess. You don't have any proof. I haven't had a chance to meet your husband, since we keep our activities secret, but from what Clara tells me, he's a very nice man. You've known him a long time. Has he ever given you reason to doubt his feelings? No, he's always been there for me. That's what I'm saying. You don't just label a person right off the bat. You have to get to know the person first. Sometimes words spoken in the heat of the moment can ruin a life. I'm sure your husband will come back and explain everything, and you should trust him if you really love him. I do. Sadly, Mary grinned. Only he wants a healthy woman, not a cripple. No man can stand a sick woman for long. I can't do anything. I'm not even a woman. What are you talking about? The man was indignant. If I understand correctly, he earns money for you only because he believes in your recovery, and for his sake he is ready to work day and night. Don't question his genuine concern for you. Immediately throw away all silly thoughts and let's start practicing." He gave her a hand, and Mary got to her feet. "I don't know why, but I believe you." She hugged William, and he froze, then gently embraced the woman, his hands trembling with excitement and his heart beating joyfully in his chest. Mary reached trustingly into the man's arms. Adam was in a hurry to get home. He didn't have much time to change quickly and get back to work. He might not have come. He always kept a spare set of underwear with him, but he missed his wife terribly. He wanted to see her, kiss her, and apologize again for not coming home for the night. It seemed to him that she was offended. He got out of the car, pulled out a huge bouquet of flowers. They were Mary's favorite, red roses. "Wow!" Clara turned pale when she saw the owner through the window. We must warn Mary, no matter how much trouble she was in. She hurried into the room where William was studying with his daughter. The woman was not ahead of Adam. "Mary, I missed you so much," the man said joyfully, swinging open the door to his wife's bedroom. "Look what I brought you." He suddenly stopped at half a word and stopped like a stumbling block. The bouquet fell out of his hands. William and Mary stood hugging each other in the middle of the room. "What's going on here?" The man shrieked. "Why are you hugging my wife?" He rushed toward the couple caught off guard, grabbed the doctor by the scruff of the neck, and tossed him aside. The man fell. Adam pounced on him, grabbed him by the throat, and began choking him. "Adam, don't you dare!" Mary shouted. "It's not what you think it is. Let him go at once." What was I supposed to think? Some man groping my wife in my house? Where did you two sniff each other? Answer me. Shaking the stranger by the breasts, the furious husband. "White coat, but you run on a date. Is not she too young for you? And I'm a fool, working from dawn to dusk. Maybe you're just pretending to be sick." He turned to his wife, not taking his eyes off his victim. "To avoid sleeping with your lawful husband? And you, Clara, covering for your mistress? By the way, I'm the one who pays you the money. Everyone knows my wife is cheating on me, but I'm a gullible idiot who never noticed. Once I didn't come home for the night. Another husband took her place. Adam. It's really an emergency room, doctor. If you let him go, I can explain everything. Please listen to me calmly." Adam left the man on the floor and got up, only to suddenly notice that Mary was standing unaided. You walk by yourself?" He marveled. "Well, walking is a big word for it. I'm taking my first steps. If you didn't hurt my doctor, I'll be on my feet soon." "I do not understand anything. How is it possible?" Breathing heavily, Adam asked, "William, Clara, leave us alone, please." Mary asked, "Have some tea. Calm down. We'll join you soon." When they were alone, the woman sank heavily onto the bed. "Sit down beside her," she ordered her husband. "William is a real doctor. He promised to help me." I didn't fully believe him, so I decided not to tell you. I wanted to make sure I could really get back to normal. But 6 months ago, the doctors clearly said you had no chance. There was one, I guess. Mary grinned. And that chance was given to me by William, and you almost killed him without realizing it. But I didn't know. Justified, ashamed, Adam. I mistook him for your lover. What am I supposed to think when I come home from work and you're standing there hugging a strange man? So you were jealous of me? Of course, I love you and I don't want to share you with anyone. I don't want to share you with anyone. Why have you been distant lately? I've been plagued by suspicions too, and I've been in a worse position. How could you be jealous of a cripple? I never thought of myself as a cripple. For me, you're the woman I love, alone and for life. You're the closest thing I've got. How could you think I'd cheat on you? Work takes up all my free time. I had to hurry to raise the money for your rehabilitation. Your doctor suggested going abroad. You don't have to go anywhere. There's a great doctor here. How did he miraculously show up at our house? I don't know, but he's my salvation. We should be grateful to him. I'm really ashamed that I jumped on him with my fists. Adam looked at his wife with embarrassment. I must apologize to him immediately. Yes, do me a favor. Mary smiled. He's a good man. I'd like to have a father like that. He's warm-hearted, considerate. Do you know how he defended you when I was ready to fight with you this morning? Why are we sitting here? The man has come to his senses. Let's go to the kitchen. I want to apologize. The young people hugged each other and left the room. Adam supported his wife. She, smiling, walked, limping, feeling the care of the beloved man beside her. "Forgive me, jealous fool," Adam said, sitting Mary down at the table. "My blood rushed when I saw Mary with you." He held out his hand to William. "I didn't want us to meet under these circumstances. I hope I didn't give you too much trouble." "It's all right, I understand." The man shook his hand in return. "For such a woman you can endure anything, and now for the main thing." The doctor grew serious. "Mary should be practiced every day, then the result will be achieved. I have a suggestion." Suddenly Adam said, "Move into our house for the duration of the treatment." "What do I think is a good idea?" "We have enough room for everyone. You don't have to go back and forth every day. You can do more with Mary." "Go for it." Mary clapped her hands and kissed her husband. "Honey, you're so good. It didn't even occur to me to ask the doctor to stay with us. I think I'll take it." Embarrassed, the man said, "If it's not too much trouble for Clara to feed another mouth, what do I care?" The old woman wailed. "Where there are 3, there are 4. From that day on, Mary's rehabilitation went faster. Adam didn't have to stay at work so often, and the need for more money was no longer necessary. As soon as there was a free minute, he hurried home to his Mary. So 3 months passed. The woman began to make the first independent steps around the house. William rejoiced at her progress, saddened only by the fact that his services would soon not be needed, and he still could not admit to Mary who he really was. One morning Mary was not feeling well, again in pain. "Should we postpone the class?" William asked worriedly, seeing her daughter's condition. "No," the woman replied stubbornly. "Let's not interrupt. I'll rest later." She pushed away the man's hands that were supporting her and took a step. Her legs gave out. She tried to keep her balance, put her foot down awkwardly, and almost collapsed to the floor. "Careful, my daughter," shrieked William, and at the last moment managed to pick up the precious burden. Immediately embarrassed, he bit his lip. "What a fool I am," he thought. "I couldn't find a more suitable occasion to tell everything." The man stood with his head down, not daring to look at Mary, fearing her reaction. "Are you my father?" Not believing her ears, the woman asked. "Did I mishear you? You call me daughter?" "Yes, I am your father. If you ask me to leave now, I won't object." William said doomedly, "I'll understand, because I haven't been there for you all these years. I can't imagine what you went through in the orphanage, thinking you were abandoned, but you weren't. How can that be? How did you find me? And why just now? I didn't know anything about you until recently," confessed the newly minted father. "Your mother kept it from me that she'd given birth. How did you find out about me?" "Evelyn, your mother, found me and told me everything. It took me 2 months to find you." "And Mom, where is she?" Mary asked hesitantly. "Why hasn't she come? Doesn't she want to see me?" "Unfortunately, Mom's gone. Just before she died, She revealed a secret she had kept all her life. It's a good thing she told me how to find you. Otherwise, we never would have met. But how did you know I needed a doctor? I didn't. I came to your house and Clara told me about your trouble. So I stayed by your side disguised as a rehabilitator. I'm a doctor, and I had the good fortune to get to know you. I could not get up the courage to confess that I am your father. All my life I dreamed of children, but it turned out that I was a lonely man, and except your mother, I could not love any other woman. I did not have a family. I thought I'd die alone, but now I'm so happy, my daughter. It's like I've grown wings. Why did Mom leave me? You know. After a little silence, the man said, I could blame her for everything alone, but I won't do it, especially now that she is no longer alive. It's just the way things are. But you should know that we loved each other sincerely. Mom would never have left you if she hadn't been afraid of hardship. She's a weak woman, and she was too young to realize the mistake she was making. There's a lot of things that can be explained. She asked me to tell you. She didn't put you in the orphanage because she didn't want you, but because she was afraid of failing. What was she like? Mary asked. Very beautiful. Father replied warmly. You look like her, and your hair, and the color of your eyes. I would have recognized you even in a crowd. She dreamed of being happy, but in her own way she understood it. The disease changed her. She saw things differently. Unfortunately, too late. What was it about her that made you loyal to her all your life? I loved her very much. The man answered simply, just the way she was. If she had written to me saying she wanted to be with me, I would have gladly stayed by her side forever. I wish Adam loved me like that. He loves you madly. Don't doubt it, daughter. William spoke gently. Can I call you that? Will you let me come to see you? If you refuse, I will accept whatever you decide. You have the right to send me away. All I need to know is that you're doing well. The recovery process is irreversible. Any hospital will finish the job. It's your decision, Dad. Mary opened her arms to him. I want you to stay with us. Thank you, my daughter. I feel like living again. The happy father embraced his daughter, squeezed her tightly in his arms. Tears came to his eyes. At that moment, Clara entered the room. It's time for dinner. From the doorstep, she said, and then she stopped. Clara, Mary turned at the sound of her voice. I'd like you to meet my dad. Well, thank goodness. I thought he'd never come clean. How? The young woman was surprised. You knew all this time and you never told me? Clara was embarrassed. I couldn't tell you because it wasn't my secret. I thought William should tell me himself. Now I see that everything is going well with you. Remember? She turned to the man. I told you Mary wouldn't send you away. I was right. Come quickly to the table. Dinner's getting cold. Adam can't wait to break the news. Mary said excitedly. But I'll wait until tonight, Clara. You owe me a celebratory dinner. Adam hurried home from work. He wanted to see his beloved, to ask about his progress. His wife's recovery was slow, but progress was evident, and the man was happy to see how every day the woman's mood changed. There was no trace left of the perpetually irritable, oppressed by illness. The old Mary whom he loved had returned. Good evening, he said cheerfully, entering the house. All three came out to meet him. What's the matter? Asked the man, seeing the shining faces. Adam, his wife waddled up to him, still on unsteady legs. And we have news for you. Meet William. She pointed to William. This is my father and your father-in-law. It doesn't get any easier. Adam was stunned. Why are you here so early? He sarcastically looked at his father. You should have waited another 25 years and then come. And I realized old age has come. I'm tired of being alone. Darling, Mary hugged him. He didn't know about me. Come on, I'll explain everything. Explain what? The husband's upset. Do you have proof that he's really the father? Or did you just take his word for it? Adam, his wife rebuked him. Why did you do that? He really didn't know anything. Why would he pretend to be my father? I believe him, especially since he helped me a lot. Don't forget, he's the reason I got back on my feet. Yeah, and now you're gonna pay him alimony for the rest of your life. You think he came out of the goodness of his heart? You're naive. Stop it. The woman cut him off. Daughter, William intervened. He has a right to say that because he cares for you. But I assure you, Adam, I want nothing from you except to know that I have you. You're the master of this house. You tell me to go, I'll go now. Mary, he turned to his daughter. I have my own house. You can come whenever you want. Daddy, you're not going anywhere. We'll all calm down now. Sit down at the table for dinner. Adam, you're tired after work, I understand. The news has knocked you out of your rut, but at least listen. Everyone sat down, began to eat. There was silence at the table. Mary was the first to speak. Do you remember, Adam, how we dreamed that our parents came and took us out of the orphanage? We were children. The man answered briefly. We wanted a family, grandmother, grandfather. Remember? We now have the opportunity to become a family, a big and friendly one. You'd be foolish to turn it down. I'm not. Adam muttered. I just want to make sure it's not a hoax. Mary's birth certificate. William said, her mother's last name and my middle name. There. The woman looked at her husband triumphantly. He couldn't have known that for sure if he hadn't met my mother. So you have a mother. Where is she? No, Mary said sadly. My mother is gone. That's why we can't give up our father. See how well we're all sitting here together. Isn't this what we dreamed of? Adam, look at me. She made Adam turn around. You're my closest, dearest person, but I want Daddy to stay with us too. Okay, reluctantly Adam agreed. Stay if your wife wants you to. And we'll have to finish the treatment now that we've started, and then we'll see. Everyone laughed with relief. We should drink to the family reunion. Mary suggested it. Clara, could you get me a nice bottle of wine, please? So William stayed at his daughter's house, not only as a doctor, but also as a caring father. A year later, Mary was walking around the house with a stick. We need to do a follow-up exam. Concerned father reported. I, of course, think that there is no tumor on the spine. Otherwise, we would not have such results, but still we need to make sure of the truth of my words. Adam took his wife to the clinic where the surgery was performed. Mary, I can't believe my eyes. Her former doctor looked at her in amazement. You're on your feet. How is that possible? You didn't stand a chance. Thank you, doctor. The woman grinned. I'm happy for me, too. If you'd had me, I'd have been healed to death. I was lucky. Tell me, I want to know how you got back on your feet. I found a good doctor. There he is. Mary pointed to my father. He's the one who saved me. Then what do you want from us now? We want to see what kind of tumor you found on your spine. William spoke. The man didn't hesitate and led him into the diagnostic room. What are you doing, doctor? William said reproachfully, looking at the scans. Couldn't you tell the difference between a spinal hernia and a tumor? You almost sent a person to the grave. She wanted to kill herself. I admit it. The doctor rubbed the bridge of his nose in confusion. We made a serious mistake. You have every right to sue for compensation. We're not going to do that. Now we need to figure out how to restore mobility to your spine. Unfortunately, the herniated disc is advanced, and I can't fix it with chiropractic care. We'll have to do another surgery, and we can't do it without you. Only the surgery will be free. We have to correct a medical error. The surgery was a success. Mary finally got back on her feet. Surrounded by the care of her loved ones, she recovered quickly. It took another year before the doctors at the next examination gave the conclusion that she was healthy. "Are we having a holiday?" Surprised to look around the bedroom, Adam asked, when one day, coming from work, found his wife in the bedroom, decorated with garlands and candles. No, it's not funny at all. Don't interrupt me, please. I'm very worried. I'm not an old man anymore. No one knows how long I have left in my last God-forsaken years. I'd like to spend them with you. I have fallen in love with you. You are so kind, gentle. You take good care of my daughter, sincerely worried about her. Marry me. I didn't think I would hear such a thing in my old age. Clara smiled, but in my heart I waited because I loved you too. Clara. William rushed to her. Did he embrace her? Pressed his cheek against her cheek? His heart sank with overflowing emotion. Shall we tell the children now? Oh no, the woman was frightened and recoiled from him. Suddenly they will not accept me. God forbid, and chase you away. Let's not publicize our relationship. We are already good with you. Maybe you're right, the man said thoughtfully. We'll wait until Mary gives birth, and then we'll tell you, but nobody can stop us from getting married. Let's go and register the marriage tomorrow, shall we? We're not in too much of a hurry, are we? And what's a stamp in the passport going to do? We don't have time to wait. I want it to be legal, the way it's supposed to be. A month later, William, Clara, quietly married. They celebrated at a restaurant, but didn't tell the children. Everyone was expecting a new addition to the family. On the due date, Mary gave birth to a healthy baby boy. What's the matter, Daddy? A laughing nurse placed in the hands of a confused Adam a baby boy wrapped in a blue envelope and tied with a red ribbon. Understand the hair. Adam couldn't help himself and opened the corner of the blanket. He looked at his son's small, wrinkled face with awe. Thank you, my dear, he only managed to say, teary-eyed with excitement. Mary smiled. William handed his daughter a bouquet of flowers. Clara hugged her warmly. Congratulations, we have a new addition to our regiment. Meet your grandson, grandparents, Mary said affectionately. Where are you from? Started confused William, looking at his daughter. Daddy, you don't have to be a professional detective to notice the way you look at each other. The daughter laughed. I don't understand only why you hide your attitude. We thought you'd be against it. What are you, Daddy? On the contrary, Mary assured him fervently. We are glad that Clara will now stay with us forever. I need her support very much. In the evening, when the hare was fed and put to bed, the adults sat around the table, eating dinner and talking. Life is an amazing thing, William said, looking around the table. I'd given up hope of ever having a family, even resigned myself to loneliness, and now I had people I cared about around me. And I'm already desperate to find shelter. Clara backed him up. I kept thinking, where are you, my happiness lost? At that time, there was a child crying. The adults laughed and rushed into the bedroom. Mary took her son and began to rock him with the words, Here it is, our happiness, one for all. Adam embraced his wife and kissed her tenderly. William pressed Clara to him. They stood and looked at the baby, and everyone's heart was full of love for each other and for the little creature in his mother's arms.
Hello, This is the Stories Beside channel. I release videos every day for you. Subscribe and click the bell.
If Molly had ever been told, even in a delusional dream, that she would choose such a dress for her wedding, she would have laughed. But now, standing in the fitting room and looking at the ruffles on the dress, she was sure it was just right. "Let's arrange a photo shoot for you," Kathy said excitedly. "Like you're all dirty Cinderella in a floor cloth, sitting in some back alley. This will be the first part of the photo shoot. And then I'll shoot you at the wedding, where you're all of yourself, such a queen, going to the groom in love. That would be the bomb. No one usually looks at wedding photos, and you'll show them to your grandchildren." Molly listened to Kathy and realized that there was no way to get rid of her crazy idea, so it was better to save her nerves and agree. Kathy was a stubborn and persistent girl. Probably, if she were just a friend, everything would be solved easier. Molly would just stop communicating with her. But what to do if this glamorous tank got you as a sister? Actually, they were only half-sisters. Kathy was her father's daughter from his first marriage. Molly treated her evenly, even with some sympathy, but she would hardly be friends with such a person. The girls were too different in character and upbringing. If it weren't for Daddy, Molly thought for the umpteenth time. If only Dad hadn't been so stubborn, I could have kept a cool sibling relationship. But Dad had gotten it into his head that his daughters had to be best friends. "Dad, we're very different from each other, and she's 10 years older than me. What do we have in common? We didn't even watch the same cartoons when we were kids. Molly, I've had this conversation about every few months or so. I don't count on my father's understanding. Kathy likes one thing and I like another. We can't even decide what movie to watch. She likes dresses and I like jeans. She likes Asian food, and I'm allergic to seafood. I mean, no, I'm nice to her, but we just have nothing to be friends about." Dad, as usual, remained adamant. "If you need a reason to be friends, you can consider blood relation a good reason. You're still young, Molly. You don't understand a lot of things." "Dad, are you sure?" The girl snorts. "Why do you think so?" "Because," nonchalantly answered the father, "because I'm older than you and I've seen a lot of things in my life, more than you can imagine. And I know all too well that partners, friends, buddies, all that is good, but how many of them will stay by your side in a difficult moment? It's good if it's one too, but family people won't let you down. One's own friend is one's own friend. And now I had to agree to a stupid photo shoot. Go early in the morning to some creepy second-hand store on the outskirts of town and try on the creepy rag Kathy had picked out. The dress, once white, had lost its color, probably 20 to 30 years ago. Now it looked dirty gray, and in some places there were yellow spots. These were located in the armpit area, and gray-brown, which had a place of honor on the straps and hem. The zipper on the back had obviously been replaced at some point. Otherwise, how else to explain the fact that the zipper was not white or even gray in the tone of the dress color? The zipper was scarlet, and from afar it could appear as a bloody scratch on the bride's back. "Vintage," proudly announced the saleswoman, showing Molly this amazing outfit. "Now such a thing is in trend. That's why we decided not to display it in the general hall. You know, customers are different. They grab it with dirty hands. They can even tear it carelessly, and things are rare and, not cheap." Molly nodded, not giving away her amazement at the sight of this masterpiece. "It's really exclusive," she said seriously. "I've never seen anything like it before." "I'll tell you more and you will not see," joyfully praised the saleswoman. "I know what you're thinking right now. You think I want to sell you a shabby old thing, cheap, for the price of a new thing, don't you? Don't answer that. I know that's what you're thinking. But if you try this thing on and compare it to any other similar item from any other store, you'll see the difference. You don't believe me? Then go to the fitting room. Molly, indignant at the saleswoman's insistence, did not object. Of course, this lady has a vested interest. She probably makes no salary, lives on a percentage of sales. There were no customers here, not a single one in half an hour. And who needs second-hand? Located in an industrial zone and squeezed between garages, which ingenious owners converted into a flea market. In 2 garages from here they sold potatoes, and in the next garage they sold fruit. The garage opposite the second was decorated with a huge sign, Shoemaker's Workshop, and to the left of it a man dressed in a tracksuit, judging by his crimson nose and cheeks, drinking heavily, was seated on a low stool. Right in front of him were 2 wooden crates. On one of them were piled a huge pile of brooms for the bath. On the second crate were small bunches of flowers, the height of a woman's palm. The small red-orange flowers, which were abundant in every front garden, suggested that the merchant was probably there to replenish his stock. Walking through this improvised market, mostly pensioners and even women of indeterminate age with a bunch of children. What can I say? To work in such a place, and the enemy would not wish. Should we be surprised at the eagerness of the saleswoman? The fitting room was the far side of the garage, separated from the sales floor by a curtain on a rope. Molly pulled the curtain, leaving her alone with a rectangular mirror leaning against the wall. "If you want, I'll give you shoes," the saleswoman shouted from behind the curtain. "You'll be able to evaluate the whole image. Here, girl, take them." And from behind the curtain a woman's hand holding the shoes appeared from the side. The shoes were large in size, pointed toe, and without backs, but they did have heels, and even too high. "Thank you." Molly decided to be polite by all means, though she wanted to send this annoying person away. The dress was indeed impressive. Besides the color, the stains, the bright red zipper, it had a few other interesting features. First, the neckline, which was supposed to be asymmetrical, was symmetrical without measure. Because of this, any, even balletic posture, automatically began to seem skewed. Secondly, not only the bodice and hem, but also the waist of the dress were decorated with ruffles. The caterpillar effect. Molly laughed. "I always wondered what I would look like if I sat on chips and hamburgers and mayonnaise." Besides, the previous owner of this vintage luxury was clearly shorter than Molly, 10 pounds shorter, the hem of the skirt not reaching her ankles. In this, the girl thought, there's an upside to that too. Even in rainy weather, the hem in a puddle will not get dirty. "What's up? How's it going?" The sales girl called her again, and Molly resolutely pulled the curtain back into the hall. "How do you like me?" She asked and spun on the spot, spreading her arms apart. "Do I look good?" "Does it look good?" The saleswoman exclaimed. "You ask me, girl. It looks great on you. It's unbelievable. You look like a fairy tale princess. What a waist. I can't take my eyes off it. And the lace, the ruffles, so delicate, so delicate. How can you not go for it?" "No way." Molly caught the eye of the broom and flower merchant. The expression on the man's face was more eloquent than any words. He looked at the girl, slightly opened his mouth, in his gaze mixed bewilderment and pity. "It happens." That's what was written on his face in arched letters. For a second he squeezed his eyes shut and shook his head, as if to see if he had seen Molly in that outfit. "I'll take that dress." The girl smiled. "Just find me a bag of some kind." How nice to deal with such customers. The saleswoman blossomed. Now, when the intense desire to impose a purchase Replaced by the joy of the deal, she relaxed and spoke almost sincerely. And Molly suddenly noticed that the saleswoman was definitely not more than 30, and she was even very pretty. "When you came in, I immediately saw that you are a tasteful, understanding girl. I have a good eye. I've been working here for a while." The price to be paid for the purchase was unreasonably high. Molly realized that if you haggle, then surely you can get a significant discount. Who else, for God's sake, would need this work of sartorial art? But she didn't feel like haggling. She was already tired of this store, of this miserable neighborhood, where everything was as dull, as lightless, as gray as the wedding dress for which she had just paid a fabulous amount of money for such a rag. If it were possible to teleport from here, slap, and you are already in another place, preferably in her favorite coffee shop, where the cozy light, the tabletop of pink marble, the exquisite coffee aroma wafting over the cup, made of inconceivably fine porcelain. And then there is the sweet waitress Betty. She always smiles so genuinely at Molly. And Michael is a true wizard, a master of vanilla chocolate magic, always saving a few chocolate hearts with apricot filling. These are your favorites. I've set aside the best ones, and she'll make a caramel cheesecake sauce especially for her. That's where I'm going." The girl instantly decided as she left the store. The seller of flowers and brooms sympathetically smiled at her, and then took one of his polo wilted bouquets in his hands. "Here you go. This is for you. No money. You do not look that they wilted, the goods first grade. When you put them in water at home, they'll come to life." "Thank you," Molly mumbled, accepting the street vendor's gift. "I wish you a good trade." She squeezed between the makeshift stalls, hurrying to get to the corner where she had left the car, but, as luck would have it, it began to rain frequently, and the few market visitors hurried away, trying to hide from the damp, and the vendors rushed to cover the trays with plastic sheeting. Several times Molly ran into the same elderly woman who was walking from one stall to another, talking loudly on the phone. She had her head wrapped in a plastic bag, so she wasn't afraid of getting wet. But Molly, it seemed to her, was deliberately getting in the way and making it difficult to move. "You're everywhere, aren't you?" shouted the woman after another collision with the girl. "Why are you following me? What do you want?" "Sorry, I didn't do it on purpose." Almost crying, Molly replied. No one had ever raised her voice, and the rudeness of the pensioner frightened her. But not 10 pounds away, she could see the corner where the car was waiting, and that gave her strength. "Excuse me." Once again she repeated, rushing forward. "I'm so sorry." Something was shouted at her back, but Molly didn't stop to answer. "Hurry, get out of here." Already in the car, Molly noticed that she was clutching the wet bouquet in her hand. How disgusting! She irritably threw the flowers on the back seat. Nothing in just half an hour she would be in the warmth, among smiles and wonderful aromas, and could forget this nightmarish morning. The coffee shop was still empty at this hour. Usually the place began to fill up after noon, when the socialites, tired from last night's party, woke up and wanted to gossip. There were plenty of guests, but newcomers often appeared. Betty always recognized them by their tired grace, their lack of makeup, and their requests for plaid. The girls, they always looked like girls no matter how old they were moving around in their oversized sweaters, wrapped their palms around huge mugs of hot chocolate, and didn't forget to take selfies with their phones. The amazing thing is, these ladies always had some kind of party the night before, after which they needed to get some sleep. And there was never a morning where they had nothing to discuss. After 3:00 p.m., it was time for stylish, well-groomed business ladies. Even here, while eating delicate desserts, They never let go of their phones and tablets for a second. Business comes first. Michael is the best pastry chef in the coffee shop, Betty confided. Most businesswomen quickly become overweight. And you know why? They eat without distractions, so they pass it on. Here you ate a piece of cake, and you didn't taste it because you were distracted by an urgent call at the time. Is that a shame? Yes, it is. You have to order more. But then there's another call that you can't miss. So if you want to stay slim, don't let yourself be distracted while eating. In the evenings, the crowd here was mixed, and that was the busiest time. And early mornings, that was the time for Molly and a few other early birds. Today, however, Molly was running late. Has our princess shown up yet? Michael peeked out of the kitchen. Betty shook her head. No, I don't think she will. Don't you read the news? Michael grinned. The news? In the tone of an oracle, he said. Reading is bad for you. I'm not ready to soak up negative emotions and poison the food I cook with them. The waitress snorted. He's always like that. You never know if he's joking or serious. The bell on the door rang melodiously, and there was no time to explain. Molly, slightly drenched in rain, appeared on the doorstep of the coffee shop. Good morning. Betty smiled. You must be cold. Shall I bring you a blanket while your order is being prepared? Yes, please do. The girl hurried to her favorite spot. It was not a deep alcove in the wall with a beige-brown sofa covered with cushions. On the shelves stylized under stone ledges, smiled with affectionate warmth, lamps, candles. On the sofa loved to lounge on the general favorite, a luxurious Persian cat. A couple of years ago, someone from the staff brought here a blue-eyed Persian kitten, red-brown in color. At that time, this institution was not as successful as it is now, but with the appearance of a fluffy kitty, the situation has changed. Visitors began to be attracted here like a magnet. The little one was named Praline and was allowed to walk around the hall whenever she wanted. She became the mascot of the coffee house, and a funny belief quickly spread among the guests. A good day awaits the one to whom the beautiful Praline will jump on the lap. This time the cat was not in its usual place. She had gone somewhere since last night. Betty explained sadly. She'll probably come back, maybe even pregnant. We haven't sterilized her. She will. Molly said. Don't look so sad, Betty. Would you like me to take your mind off things for a while? My girlfriends and I decided to have a Cinderella-style photo shoot at our bachelorette party. You won't believe where I went to find the right dress. By the way, it's not very far from here. But Betty, you should have seen it. Can you believe it? There's garages and garages and garages and garages, and each one's been converted into a store. But store is a bit of a mouthful. The people there are wild, not people, but goblins. But I found the dress. In general, if you want a thrill, you don't need to watch horror movies anymore. Just go to those places. You won't regret it. You've never been there? No? Betty shrugged her shoulders and smiled crookedly. Why not? I've lived there since I was a kid. And my daddy has a store in one of those garages, too. He sells vegetables and fruit, and they're always the freshest and tastiest. Molly blinked helplessly. I should have said that. Who was pulling her tongue? I'm sorry, Betty. I didn't mean to. I'm used to other places, and I said it out of surprise. Oh, and how could I do that? I'm sorry again. The waitress nodded dryly. Your order will be ready in a minute. Molly shook her head tiredly. What kind of day was this? Such a horrible day. Some grandmother had yelled at her. She'd gotten soaked in the rain, and now Betty had hurt her for nothing. Molly, not unlike many of her friends and even her half-sister, was brought up strictly. Kathy was always yelling at the driver in the cab, calling sales assistants stupid. And the pedicure master could easily get from her a poke with her foot for not evenly trimmed cuticle. That wasn't the case with Molly. She still remembered the fight her father had gotten her into when she, an 11-year-old Moshorka, in a fit of teenage rebellion, had once sassed her nanny. Rules of behavior were not invented by fools. They're there so people can interact without any silly scandals. Molly yawned. She hated lectures, and she found her father's calm demeanor intolerable. Just once he'd lost his temper, screamed, broken something, but Dad never lost his temper. And I am bored with life, without any silly scandals, daringly she answered, looking her father in the eye. He was not confused, did not tremble. Then scandalize with your girlfriends. But if a person works for you, it does not give you any right to humiliate him. My father said then. First of all, because only plebeians behave like that. A man from a decent society would never allow himself to stoop like that. Besides, you mustn't forget that the nanny can quit and get a job with another family the very next day. And we'll have to spend a lot of time before we find a decent replacement. Is your precious Kathy a common plebeian too? Molly asked in an innocent tone. I'm not prepared to discuss it. Father cut her off. But neither do I intend to repeat the same parenting mistakes I made with Kathy. And now you'd better apologize to your nanny. To better learn the lesson, the father for 2 weeks deprived Molly cash pocket money and forbade the use of credit cards. Subsequently, the girl was convinced many times that her father's teachings were not wasted. Molly finally made sure of it in his 17 years. When it was time for the first love, the guy she was in love with all through the school year invited her to a cafe. The girl couldn't remember herself from happiness, but all her love unknowingly evaporated when she saw how rude to the waitresses the young man. In the young waitress, the guy threw a plate because he thought there were frozen vegetables in the salad. Molly tasted the salad as well, and the vegetables were fresh. Apparently, the young man decided to impress in this way. The waitress was replaced, the salad was apologized for, but the matter did not end there. Her suitor had a new idea of fun. Now he was mocking the young man who served them juice. As soon as the waiter turned his back for a moment, the jolly boy knocked the glass to the floor. Why do you always put the glasses on the very edge of the table? He was indignant. Don't they teach you anything at all? Molly left before dinner was over. Dazed admirer ran after her all the way to the exit, and all persuaded to say what she did not like so much, but she would not answer him. To her father's question as to why she had returned so soon, Molly answered briefly, "He is a plebeian," and no further explanation was needed. But now she herself had behaved worse than any plebeian. Shame on her! The girl did not immediately realize that someone was staring at her, and therefore she even flinched when she saw the blue cat eyes watching her intently from under the table. "Sweet Candy, is that you? How you scared me!" Molly leaned over to the cat. "It's so good to have the kitty back. Maybe it's a sign that the rest of the day is going to turn out well? Come here, kitty cat. Here, kitty, 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 kitty." The cat ignored the guest's flirtations, wagged its tail lazily, and turned away. "Oh, come on. What happened? Didn't you recognize me?" Pralin didn't even turn her head in the girl's direction and walked leisurely past her toward the kitchen. For some reason, this arrogant feline indifference was offensive. "Your order." Betty placed a cup of coffee and a plate with an impressive piece of cheesecake on the table. Molly smiled, almost pleadingly, at the waitress. She was still terribly embarrassed about her rudeness, but the main thing was that she really felt good about Betty and didn't want to offend her. She touched the edge of her plate with her finger. "Did Michael make the sauce especially for me?" she said. She asked, just to make a point. Betty did not respond to her smile. "The chef's sauce is a separate charge, and it's priced accordingly. You'll probably have to save money now, but you don't have to pay for the coffee." "What?" Molly looked up at the still face Betty. "I don't understand." "I already apologized, didn't I?" The waitress allowed herself to smile with the tips of her lips. "Information gets into the news quickly, and we're goblins, but we're literate." "What information?" "Yeah, what are you talking about?" "Coffee's on the house." "Cold," repeated Betty. "Bon appetit." Praline followed the waitress, giving Molly a contemptuous look. What was Betty saying? "What kind of information?" "What kind of news?" Molly pulled out her phone, hoping to make sense of the overly complicated innuendo. "News, then." The screen flashed alarmingly with 28 missed calls. Yeah, of course she hadn't heard. She was always forgetting her phone in the car. Good thing she hadn't forgotten it now. The girl opened the full list of missed calls. There was only one number on it. "Dad, I left my phone in the car. I didn't hear anything." "Did something happen?" "I see." Dad sighed. "You still don't look at the news, Dad?" She was getting nervous. For some reason, everyone is always talking about the news. Isn't it hard to tell a human what happened? Dad didn't answer. "Dad, where are you?" "Can you hear me?" "Yes." Dad was speaking very clearly now, almost separating the syllables. "I can hear my daughter." "I'm sorry, Molly, but you're gonna have to go through this life without my support." "Yeah, what are you talking about?" Nervousness turned to panic, and the feeling grew stronger that this was all just a stupid prank. "Why are you always talking in riddles? What happened?" "Everything happened." Dad exploded and Molly got it. "No, it's not a prank." Her dad, always so poised, so reasonable, yelled into the phone, which had never happened before. "I don't have any more money. Do you realize that? I'm broke, and you're broke with me. Do you get it?" Finally, my father hung up the phone. Molly stared at the dimmed screen of her cell phone for a few seconds, then awkwardly rose from her seat. "The bill," she shouted. As if by magic, Betty appeared beside her. "Here you go." Molly threw a credit card on the table. "Just a minute." Betty smiled politely. "I apologize, but your card is blocked." Molly shook her head. "That's impossible." "Try again." The waitress repeated all the manipulations with the card. "I'm sorry, but your card is blocked." Molly slowly sank down on the couch. "So it's true?" She said to no one in particular. She searched all her pockets. There was some cash in one of them. "Here, take this. It will probably be enough, won't it?" Praline, following Betty everywhere, snorted. "Come here, kitty." Molly called to her pitifully. "Will you at least take pity on me?" But the cat defiantly turned away. "It seems we are no longer loved here," Molly whispered, and she didn't realize whether she was trying to make a joke or had accidentally voiced an unpleasant truth. Molly walked out of the coffee shop and headed for the car. Kathy was already flooding her sister with messages. Her cards, of course, had been blocked too, and she was now in a near hysterical state, sniping Molly's phone. "Come over here soon." She cried into the receiver. "Pay for my shopping. I'm at the checkout line at the mall. I've got tons of stuff, and none of my cards work." Well, who'd doubt it? Her sister's ability to spend all day at the mall was well known. "I'm sorry, Kathy," Molly interrupted her. "I can't help you right now. I have exactly the same story, and you have no conscience." The sister almost roared. There's a line of people here, all freaking out. And I'm standing here like a beggar. I'm ashamed. So give up shopping. The girl got angry. I don't have any money. Okay, bye. There was no doubt Kathy would call back, and then call back 10 or even 20 more times. Just put it on auto dial, hoping to harass the recipient so he'd eventually break down and pick up. But I didn't have time for that right now, and I'm getting married tomorrow. Molly suddenly remembered. The thought of the imminent wedding was crushing, and the girl burst into tears, burying her forehead into the steering wheel. Even this morning, life had been very different. In this life, Molly was the daughter of a more than well-to-do man, and she had everything she could ever want. A young, spoiled girl, fancy clothes, an expensive car and the latest model phone, lots of girlfriends, traveling and partying. In this life, the future was as plain and simple as the change of seasons. She would marry James because their fathers are best friends and longtime business partners. When one of them had a son and the other a daughter, they decided that their children would marry as soon as they were in their 20s. From an early age, Molly knew she would become James' wife and did not resist it. Dad, smart, sensible as ever, explained to her that it was best for everyone. Of course, he said, I know that most people prefer to choose their own spouse, and that's not stupid when it comes to people living ordinary lives. Their children become grown up and independent early. They have to decide who to study for and whether to study at all. They barely out of high school start earning and learning to live on their earnings while trying to help their parents. They gain experiences that neither you nor James have. You grew up like rare flowers in a greenhouse. How are you supposed to know what kind of person you want in a family? You don't even know yourself yet. We've tried to raise you for each other, me and Father James. I can't promise you the euphoria of marriage, but I think you'll live peacefully. Besides, you won't have to worry about money. The wedding will be a good opportunity to merge our companies, and one of your heirs will take over the business in the future. Do you have any objections? What about love? Out of sheer stubbornness, the girl asked. The father shrugged his shoulders. Love the lottery. It's not wise to take risks when there's too much at stake. Business reputation, fortune. Finally, the physical, mental health of future children. If you want bad adventures so badly, you can always arrange it carefully. Brutal male with iron muscles can easily turn out to be weak and whiny in everyday life. Wouldn't it be easier to limit yourself to a few encounters with him and then go back to your reliable husband? The only thing you have to do is make sure your spouse doesn't find out. Then he won't let you in on the details of his adventures either. Show respect for each other, and everything will work out fine. Dad was always very rational. Molly nodded, realizing she had nothing to say and didn't want to. She liked James. She wasn't in love with him, of course, but she liked the sympathy even better. It filled her with peace and confidence. And now there was no more confidence or peace in the world. The image of James presented itself to her in her mind, full-figured, dark-haired, with a soft look and a shy smile. She'd never been particularly interested in what he did for a living, where he went, who his friends were. Their relationship was more like that of people living in a marriage of many quiet years. Returning from any shopping, Molly invariably brought a gift, and for the groom, congratulated on all holidays, gave not important, but pleasant little things. From each trip, she brought a souvenir for the groom. He politely thanked her and kissed her on the cheek. Every morning, the girl received a message wishing her a good day, and they always spent Valentine's Day together in some romantic place, and we'd never even had a real kiss. What's kissing? We were never alone with him. I wonder why. Molly suddenly thought, And this discovery turned out to be so wild, abnormal, that the girl could not stand it and laughed out loud. From the street, it must have looked strange. Behind the wheel of an expensive car sat a young girl with tears on her cheeks and laughed heartily. Betty, peering at Molly from the window of the coffee shop, shrugged. The rich have their quirks. She was roaring like a mad beluga, and now she was laughing. Praline meowed affirmatively. Kathy looked angrily at the stairs leading to the second floor. She managed to get out of the mall without too much loss. When her sister had disconnected her phone, making it impossible for her to reach her, Kathy didn't hesitate for a moment. After all, there were plenty of contacts in her phone. "James, hi, honey," she shouted as soon as her call was answered. "James, I've got a favor to ask of you. Help me out, future relative. I have something with my card. I can't pay for my shopping, and I've got a lot of stuff for the wedding. Please help me out. Just don't wire me any money, but come here yourself. I'm at the mall right now." The mall. James listened patiently and wrote down the address. "Okay, Kathy, I'll be there. Don't worry about a thing." He saw her, barely crossing the threshold of the mall. Kathy waved at him with countless packages. "I'm here, here," she shouted. For nothing really. There was no need to attract attention. It was impossible to miss the bright red coat anyway. James smiled, appreciating the extent of the shopping. "You're buying up the whole store, aren't you?" "Along with the warehouse? Not the whole store, just the stuff I liked." The girl said nonchalantly. "What can I do?" "I don't want to look pale at my only sister's wedding." He glanced again at the boxes and bags. "Is that why you bought 8 pairs of shoes and 24 evening gowns? Are you really going to wear them all at the same time?" He was teasing her, but his smile was so kind that it was impossible to take offense. Count, math genius. Kathy laughed. "You just don't understand anything about women. I couldn't decide which outfit I liked best, so I decided to think about it at home in peace. What can I count on you for? Here you go." James sighed and took out a bank card from his wallet. "I really don't know much about women." "You're right about that. But I know one thing for sure, you can't say no to anything." Kathy looked at him carefully and smiled broadly, though a little sadly. "Such happiness, Molly, will come to you," she said with a little regret and added more quietly. "Why? Why not me? You'll be lucky." James replied and cheerfully picked up the numerous purchases. "You'll get a fiancé that will make all your girlfriends jealous." "Come on." Kathy didn't move. "What about you?" She touched James' hand lightly. "Are you going to be jealous of the guy who gets me?" James was confused and took a step backward, bumped his back against one of the customers, mumbled a crumpled apology. "Yeah," he said with all his might, trying to keep his tone casual. "I'm a married man, so I'm not supposed to be jealous of other men's husbands, even if they are married to gorgeous women." "It pleases me that you think I am a gorgeous woman," said Kathy, still in the same special quiet voice, which for some reason on the skin ran goosebumps. "Yes, of course I do. Shall we go? You probably have a lot of important things to do." James hurried off. Cosmetology and manicures, and of course, picking out an outfit for tomorrow. "Can you give me a ride?" Kathy asked him. "I won't even be able to pay for a cab until I get my card sorted out. This is so stupid." Kathy lived in a huge studio with panoramic windows. The view was amazing. The river and forest on the other side. How beautiful it must be here in winter. "There's a second floor here, too," said the girl, letting James into the hallway. "There used to be a communal house here, and before that, The house belonged to some aristocrat long ago under the Tsar. When I grew up, Dad bought 2 apartments for me, one right above the other. So I live in a 2-story palace all by myself. Isn't it boring? James asked. You don't even have a dog. Kathy laughed, kicked off her shoes, and strode across the room with a dancing step. I'm not often home, she said. The dog would probably die of homesickness. I see. James stomped awkwardly in place. Where should I put your bags? I'll go. I don't want to take you away from your business. Kathy waved her hand. Throw them somewhere, anywhere, and they won't get away from me. I'm not letting you go without a cup of tea. Oh no, thanks. No objections. I've got to do something to thank you. And my tea is very special. I bet you've never tasted anything like it. Really? James smiled. Shall we test it? Kathy winked. A small table on wheels, beautifully set, with 2 cups and a vase of candy, Kathy stopped at the window between 2 armchairs. I like to sit here, she said simply. Both in the evening and in the morning, really? I like coffee in the morning. I have an original predilection, don't I? Kathy laughed. Well, try it already, and don't you dare say it doesn't taste good. What is it? James blinked as he took a sip from the cup. The flavor of the drink was strange, not at all like tea. It was more like something between sweet baby fizz and herbal infusion. Kathy genuinely enjoyed the effect. My personal recipe, a tea with white rose petals, orange zest, chocolate shavings, and a pinch of pepper. Pepper? James swallowed hard and took another sip. Yeah, she is beautiful. James thought suddenly. Why didn't I notice it before? I'm so embarrassed. She said quietly. Did Molly tell you everything? Did she? No. James shook his head. She didn't. What difference does it make? Yeah, it probably doesn't. You're probably right. Kathy slowly twirled a strand of hair around her finger. There was something mesmerizing about the motion. Would you like some more tea? She offered. I'll get some. James suddenly felt a little dizzy. For some reason, he wanted to get up and leave immediately. But suddenly Kathy's face, her soft, plump lips, were right next to him. How had it happened? She'd just been sitting in the chair. So you know everything and you're going to marry her after all? She whispered, almost touching his face. Now she was sitting on the floor, hugging his knees. You'll be lucky, Kathy. James muttered again. The girl remained silent. You'll be lucky. James gently stroked Kathy's soft golden hair. Her bright blue eyes seemed huge and looked so helpless. Meanwhile, Molly dialed her sister's number for the 3rd time. Where had she gone? Kathy always kept her cell phone handy and never turned it off. Yes, but it was too late to leave. The intercom rang, announcing that all avenues of escape were now cut off. It's Molly. Kathy whispered. Okay, go to the 2nd floor and sit there like a mouse. Quiet as a mouse. Quiet as a mouse, you understand. Molly stood on the doorstep, crumpling a bag with something soft inside. The rustling sound was so loud that Kathy covered her ears with her hands. Stop it, she shouted. Don't rustle. Molly, without waiting for an invitation, went into the kitchen. Well, that's better. At least she stopped rustling. Do you have guests? Asked the girl, noticing the 2nd cup on the table. Kathy smiled conspiratorially at her sister. There were guests, and I didn't have time to put the dishes away, and I haven't made the bed after the guests. Even the sheet didn't overpower. You know how I like to get rid of stress, don't you? What about you? Called James yet? Molly looked at Kathy absently, as if she hadn't immediately remembered who James was and shook her head slowly. "No, I haven't, and he hasn't called me. I don't even know if there's going to be a wedding now. Maybe now. Well, after what happened, he'll change his mind about marrying me. Would that make you sad?" Kathy asked. "Imagine your fiancé calling you now and telling you there's no wedding. Would you be upset?" James, who was lurking on the second floor, turned to listen, but for a long time there was complete silence downstairs. Had they fallen asleep? "Are you going to be upset or not?" Kathy asked again. Molly shrugged. "I'll be upset. I guess I'll be upset. I'm so used to the idea of us getting married that I can't imagine anyone else. But that's not what I'm thinking about right now. I'm trying to figure out how to move on. I guess I should get a job, but I don't know what to do. I've never worked before. I don't even know what it's like. And my dad, what's he gonna do? I'm afraid he'll start drinking, like from the shock. Maybe we should tell Mom. Why don't she come and stay here till Daddy gets over all this trouble?" No, wait. You're thinking about the wrong thing." Her sister interrupted her. "If you marry your James tomorrow, you won't have to think about any work. And then you can help your father, and nothing will change for you. And if I don't marry him?" Molly replied sullenly, "Will there be a wedding at all? You know, this is so stupid. Today at 4 o'clock I have to go to the dressmaker to pick up the dress and pay for it, of course, and I have nothing to pay with. And now I don't even know if I need this dress." "What? You have no money at all?" Kathy gasped. "Not even any cash left? That can't be true. No way. I spent the last of my cash on something. I can't remember what." Molly lost her forehead. Her mind was jumbled. "I remember. I paid for the coffee at the coffee shop before my dad called me. So now the only dress I can afford is this one here." She rustled the bag again, which contained a hideous dress from secondhand. James grinned bitterly. It was still a shame that Molly had come to her sister's house instead of his. It would have been normal for her to go to her fiancé first, to seek support from him. Would he have refused her? Isn't that what people do? And himself. Immediately he objected to himself. He knew what had happened and had not even called her. He thought she would call him herself. He didn't want to pry into her soul. But is that the way to put the question when you know that someone close to you is in trouble? I'm an asshole. The conclusion he came to was disappointing. It turned out that he and Molly were not close people. Close people do not behave like that. A long time ago in high school, he had fallen head over heels in love with his neighbor. The girl's parents were not very sociable people, and for 6 months in a new neighborhood, they never met anyone. Their daughter hadn't made any friends either, and it seemed she'd never even talked to anyone. James had no idea how to approach this arrogant little thing, but chance came to the rescue. They had met at a dog-walking area, and the Spitz, which the beautiful neighbor was leading on a thin leash, suddenly broke free and ran away. James rushed after it. The puppy wasn't used to physical exertion, so it took a couple of minutes to catch him. "Hold your pet." The girl nodded, then pulled a small notebook out of her pocket and quickly wrote a few words in it. "Thank you for helping catch Klaus," he read as the girl handed him the notepad. "I'm mute. My name is Lisa." Soon he and Lisa became firm friends. It turned out that the girl's parents were mute, too, and that was why, not because of arrogance as he had thought at first, they didn't socialize with anyone. Now, right after school, he and Lisa would rush to the park and sit on a bench for long hours, exchanging notes. And then one day it was over. "Tomorrow my parents and I are leaving here forever," she wrote in her notebook. "Tomorrow? Where are you going and why?" "To my grandmother's." Lisa wrote, Daddy says it's the right thing to do. That was all she could get out of her. Now, after all these years, James remembered his mute girlfriend and regretfully realized that even he knew more about her than he did about his fiancée. And his relationship with Lisa had been much more intimate and trusting than with Molly. Congratulations, you idiot. You realized it on the eve of your own wedding. He walked downstairs to the girls at the very moment Molly, wearing her Cinderella dress, was slowly turning around in front of her sister. "Do you like it?" she asked Kathy. "I don't think I've ever seen anything worse in my life, much less worn. It's the most beautiful dress I've ever seen." James said loud and clear, "And you are beautiful, and always will be." In any dress. Molly turned sharply toward him. "James, when you came in, I didn't hear anything?" "I'm sorry," he said. "I didn't mean to scare you. I've been here the whole time, just on the second floor, and you and me." He walked over to Molly and took her hand. "We have a lot to talk about. I just realized that we don't know each other at all. I'm sorry. It's all my fault." "What do you mean?" Kathy smiled wryly. For some reason, her face was completely distorted from that skewed, evil smile, which was more like a grin. Such a beautiful, gentle face, it suddenly turned into an ugly mask. "We're in the middle of a revelation," she sang softly. "That's good. Before the wedding, it is better to know everything about each other. Oh, you two are so good. James, dear, I propose to begin by explaining to our little Molly what you are doing here and why you were hiding from her on the second floor. Will you?" Molly, not understanding, looked at her sister, then at her fiancé. He stood with his eyes downcast. "Lia, is there something I don't know?" she asked. "What is she talking about? What are you doing with her?" James took her by the shoulders and turned her around to face him. "I cheated on you, Molly. At least I think I did. I don't remember the details, though. And no, I never thought about it before. I don't know how it happened. He started hitting on me." I shrieked, Kathy. "No, he didn't," James replied calmly. "Kathy suggested that I try some special tea. It made me dizzy and drowsy and weak." Yeah. Kathy snorted. "Weakness, drowsiness, listen to him. He will now tell how I seduced him myself, deprived him of his innocence, poor thing." "Kathy?" Ignoring the comments, James continued. "She was very upset about about what happened to your father. She was sitting here on the floor with her head in my lap. I don't remember the rest of it. I woke up naked with her next to me." Molly slowly, like a wind-up doll, turned to face Kathy. "After all, you are my sister," she said quietly. "How could you? And why would you do that?" "Sister?" She laughed shrilly and turned away to the window. "You've always been a bit naive, Molly," Kathy said without turning around. "No, it's not even naive. You've always been a complete idiot. Look at you and me. What kind of sisters are we? We have nothing in common, not a single trait, and my mother. Have you ever seen her? Ever wonder where she is? Did our father ever think of her?" Kathy turned to Molly and James. Slender, tall, golden-haired, but so alien. "I am not your father's daughter," she said, raising her voice slightly. "I'm his mistress." Molly didn't answer. Just stared at Kathy with widened eyes, tiny beads of sweat beading on her forehead. She could feel it. "Kathy," James began firmly, "calm down and stop talking nonsense. Don't you realize what you're saying?" "Don't know what I'm saying," she said mockingly. "Honey, I haven't even told you half of it yet. How about the fact that I'm not a stranger to your worthy parent either? Are you really my sister?" James smiled. Or maybe a mother or grandmother. Just to be clear? I'm neither, kid. The blonde didn't hesitate. I've been sleeping with your daddy for a long time. And now let's think. Molly, how come your father, a wealthy, serious man, went bankrupt in one day? Use your brain, dummy. These things never happen in 1 second. Someone has been digging under him for months, maybe even years, gathering and sorting information, finding weaknesses. And that someone needed a spy in the enemy camp. Someone with access to everything, to all the secrets. Someone trusted. Who do you think it could be? Think, Molly. A person who's trusted, who can access anything if he wants to, and no one would suspect him. Are you saying it's you? James laughed. That's bloody nonsense. And you know why? There's no reason for my father to pull a scam like that. It's not much of a scam. Kathy pulled the hem of her silk robe tighter and sat down in the low armchair. It's not fraud, my little friends. It's revenge. Many years ago, a man was walking through the winter woods, knee-deep in deep snow. He was clearly not dressed for walking. A light jacket would have withstood at most a light, illuminating frost, but not -25 with wind. Jeans and city sneakers, too, were not suitable for wading through the thicket. The man was dragging a kind of sled made of interconnected power branches. The branches were covered with a sweater and a t-shirt, and on this improvised mattress lay a man, his face pale with pain. His eyes were closed, but the man was awake. From time to time he opened his eyes, groaned softly, and moaned in pain. Nothing. He was encouraged by the one in front. I can smell smoke already. I can smell it from here. We'll soon reach the village, and there someone will give us a lift to the town. Just be patient, just a little longer. Can you feel your legs? I feel. The other one. I wish I didn't feel anything. It hurts like hell. The right one's still okay, but the left one feels like a train ran over it. Be patient. The first one repeated stubbornly and looked glumly ahead. He didn't smell any smoke, so lied to support the wounded. It was not clear where this forest ended, or whether it would end at all. Maybe they were going in circles. He clenched his teeth tighter and tried to pick up his pace. His blonde hair, visible from beneath his hat, was already crusted with ice. His eyelashes were white with frost. His heart grew more and more stiff, an irrational, almost childlike fear. That they would wander through the enchanted forest for the rest of eternity. How does it say in fairy tales? The Leshy, if he wants to amuse himself, will make travelers wander more often, will not let them find the way home. He walked minute by minute, falling asleep on the way from terrible fatigue. Don't sleep, don't sleep. You can't sleep now, you'll fall asleep and won't wake up. In order not to fall asleep, he counted his own steps. 1, 2, bad head, 3, watch your step. The wounded man moved on his spruce sled, and again he gave a long sigh. 4, 5, let's go for a walk. We can't get out, moaned the other one. 6, frost can't eat us. 7, we live to please everyone. We'll both be lost here. Why don't you leave me? Hey, 8, we'll survive without asking anyone. If we both die, who'll raise the children? You, James, don't leave me. Nonsense. We won't die. No forest goes on forever, and they don't go in circles. They haven't made a single turn anywhere. It's all right. The forests here, he remembered from the map, are small, and any one of them could be traversed. There's a village up ahead, exactly 100 miles away. He even imagined a few houses under snowy roofs, smoke billowing so there's people around. People are sitting in the house. Some of them are warming themselves by the stove in felt boots. Some of them are reading a book or maybe knitting socks. And on the windows are curtains in flowers or in peas. It doesn't matter. You can have polka dots. There are patterns on the windows. The frost did it. It's beautiful. What else is there? Oh, pies, of course, baked in the oven. Their crust is ruddy, crispy when you bite into it, and inside the pie it's soft, and the filling is delicious. Potatoes in one pie, potatoes in the other. Let it be egg and onion. And the third one should be sweet. With jam, let there be a third one. Suddenly he stopped and sniffed. No, this time he was not dreaming. The smell of smoke, of warmth, tickled his nostrils pleasantly. So the village was very close. Hold on. He shouted to his comrade, and as fast as he could, he strode forward. After 100 miles, he saw a wide gap between the trees. In front of him in the lowlands, the whole village lay like a palm of his hand. Hey, he shouted at the top of his lungs. People, help! No one answered him, but somewhere in the yard, a small dog yapped a couple of times, and then it went silent. People! The man shouted again. His voice was clearly desperate. But then a heavy door in one of the houses creaked open. Why are you yelling? Do you need help? What is it? How in God's name? Did a truck drive over it? The man in the house they were in had helped to carry the wounded man into the house and set him down on a hard wooden bench. Now he was examining the wounded man's legs, clucking his tongue disapprovingly and muttering something to himself. When he had finished, he shook his head and wrapped the groaning man in a fur blanket. It was an accident, explained the one who was well. It's a blizzard at night. The road is slippery. You can't see anything. We would have stopped to wait it out, but we were in a hurry. His son is waiting at home. My daughter is waiting for me. So we overturned. The car caught fire, but I'm okay. My arms and legs are intact. My rib only hurts, but it's from a bruise. But my partner, you can see for yourself. I can see. I'm not blind. Answered the man. We need to go to town, to the hospital, or he'll die. Help me. We'll carry him to the car together. He came to his senses only in the morning and was surprised to find himself in a white hospital room. His comrade was sitting motionless on the next bed, leaning back on the pillow. Was he dozing? No, not likely. He opened his eyes immediately. Are you all right? William? I'm fine. I'm fine. Are you okay? Should I get the nurse? No, are you okay? I'm fine. You've had surgery, you'll live, and in time you'll learn to walk again. You had 4 fractures. They had to put you back together. But you got it together, right? They did. The patient licked his parched lips. So we had Christmas. Why were you in such a hurry? Oh, I'm thirsty. William, it's after the anesthesia. Wait, I'll be right back. The one called William took glasses and a plastic bottle of water from the nightstand. I'll get you some water. Can you stand up? No? Then let's do it this way. He put one hand under his friend's neck, and with the other he brought the glass to his lips. Drink, Charles, but don't hurry, you'll choke. Charles drank greedily in small gulps, keeping his eyes on William. You are, aren't you? He said, withdrawing his hand from the glass. You saved my life. You could have left me there, and that would have been it. All the debts, all the bills, everything would have stayed there. But you didn't. I don't have any bills to settle with you. William replied sharply. No debts either. Not you, not me. And Nancy? The name hung in the air and seemed to heat him up. Nancy. They both liked her with her snub nose, her freckles, and her tangled black curls. They'd met at a frat party. Then the whole dorm was buzzing, of course. The session was closing. It was there, in the kaleidoscope of ruddy laughing faces, that he first noticed her. Her stubborn black eyes locked into his, never letting go for a second, holding him fast. William stepped closer to her, short, thin as a cane, wearing someone else's leather jacket. "Who are you?" "Nancy." A cigarette between cheekily smiling lips, black curls ringing her eyes. "Oh, you bastard," someone behind him said quietly. "He's got it in for the guy. That's it. Lights out. She's made up her own mind." William said quietly to Charles in the room, "You loved her more than I did." It was fate. A shadow ran across William's face. Whether it was love or just the madness of puberty and all the vagaries of puberty, he didn't get over it. He didn't get over it, but then she caught up with him. "Don't go out with her," someone he knew at the time advised him. "She's got half the city following her around like they're tied up. And her, she only loves herself. Get out of your head before it's too late." He didn't. Things had broken down with his wife before the girl was born, and as soon as the baby was a year old, the couple divorced. Having obtained freedom, the ex-wife went to her homeland. There she was offered a job in her favorite specialty and promised to allocate an apartment. There are not for the child conditions. Sensible, she reasoned. It's cold, and I'll be at work from morning till night. Who'll look after Molly there? Let your daughter stay with you, and I'll keep an eye on her. William didn't mind. Molly stayed with her father. Her mother didn't come often, only a few times, but she corresponded with her daughter regularly. Letters from her came once a week and contained long, colorful descriptions of northern nature and stories about work, about acquaintances. At the end of the letter, Mom always asked her to send her regards to her ex-husband and politely inquired about his health and asked her daughter to take care of Dad. And at Christmas always came cards drawn by Mom's hand. She drew beautifully and could well have been a successful artist. Molly always felt that even though her mom was far away, she was very near. After all, the girl knew everything about her life. William, it seemed, and did not think to resent his ex-wife. On the contrary, often called her, told her a lot about her daughter, and invariably invited her to come and visit and stay for any length of time. Once, when he learned that his ex-wife was hospitalized with pneumonia, he himself went to her, assigning all the cases to assistants and brought with him the best pulmonologist. After she was discharged, he personally negotiated with his superiors a vacation for his ex-wife and paid for her vacation on the ocean coast. Just to be sure, he sent Molly along with her, and in that he was lucky, Charles thought bitterly. Yes, William's marriage didn't work out, but they had separated like people, friends, you might say, and the daughter remained with her father and mother. And James never knew his mother. Nancy, however, still occasionally appeared in Charles's life. There were, I think, only 3 such episodes. She somehow managed to find his phone number, and she always called at night. The first call was from New York. What was Nancy doing there? That remains a mystery. She called to wish Charles a Merry Christmas. There was a festive, cheerful noise in the receiver. She must have been calling from somewhere on the street. The city was rumbling behind her, bursting with people's laughter, deafening with fireworks, and voices speaking every language in the world were heard from everywhere. Nancy did not want to answer any questions, but she laughed merrily and wished her ex-husband health and happiness. "Why did you run away?" Charles shouted into the phone. "Why did you abandon the child? Do you even know what I named him? Do you know what your son's name is? Don't worry. Everything is fine with me." Nancy spoke dryly and immediately disconnected. A few months later, there was a call from Madrid. Not once did Nancy ask about her son, and she still didn't know his name. Cuckoo, cuckoo, still cuckoo. Bitter, Charles concluded. Forget it. You have a son growing up. Be happy for him. His friend advised him, and it was hard not to agree with him. When the children grow up, they'll get married. William smiled, cradling his daughter. Charles nodded again. That's a good idea, he said thoughtfully. Their fathers are friends. They've known each other since childhood, and love is love, but family is different. Strange, he thought so sincerely. But now, lying in a hospital bed, saved by his best friend and reassembled by the doctors, Charles felt a cold, slithering, snake-like envy crawling into his soul. Is this what William is in for, such inhuman luck? What had he done to deserve it? Fate saved him from Nancy, that's fine. You can explain that by the accidents of love. But what about now? They were traveling in the same car, rolled over together. Only Charles is lying there, unable to get up. And William, not even a scratch. He's a lucky bastard. I couldn't bear to think about it. It made me feel ashamed and even blacker than before. So what? Roughly interrupted James. Unhurried story, Kathy. Molly's father saved my life, and he ruined him for that. Do you hear yourself? Not for that. Kathy sighed, but because William, as it turned out, was luckier in everything. He and his wife were separated humanely, no arguments, no quarrels. He was in a car accident, and he didn't get a bruise or a scratch. He was unharmed, and Charles pulled him out. So he's the one for luck. What's this nonsense? Shocked, Molly whispered. Kathy's crazy story still didn't fit in her head. They couldn't be true. It's all made up. Nonsense. Just because Daddy was luckier. The blonde shrugged her shoulders. Isn't that enough? I, for one, understand Charles perfectly well. Even if you and I are compared, I look at you, you fool, and I don't understand. Why are you so lucky? You were born into a rich family. You've never been denied anything. Your father was so caring. Even introduced me to you as an unknown older sister. Did not want to traumatize his daughter with the message that her daddy beautiful, a mistress appeared, and you have good suitors. Maybe he's a knave fool. I won't argue with that. But he's a good, decent, loyal man. And his pockets are not windy. Am I worse than you in any way? No, not worse, that's for sure. Maybe even prettier than you. And as for brains, there's nothing to talk about. I'm definitely the smarter of the two of us. Do you know where I lived? Do you know where I'm from? No, you don't. You bought that ugly dress in the second hand today, and my sister works in that second hand as a saleswoman. Her husband sits across the street, selling bath brooms. 2 twin boys, they send their children to grandmothers and grandfathers and work hard to earn money. And you've never worked a minute in your life, but you've never known need. Everything was brought to you and others like you on a golden platter. Right? But it's not my fault, Kathy. It's not my fault. Molly screamed. Did I take anything from you or your sister? Are you poor yourself? Not poor, not rich, but as it comes. Kathy grinned. I didn't get all this from the sky. I'm not happy with your dads, and I have to pretend to you, my stepsister. But it's better than selling rags in a garage or brooms. Huh, your father always thought we'd be friends, but there's one thing he didn't count on. I didn't want to be friends with you. But you. She sent James an affectionate smile. You could have married me instead of her. Kathy nodded at Molly. How am I any worse? James was silent for a long time. You disgust me. Finally, he said, "Molly, let's go." He squeezed his fiancée's hand tightly and turned toward the door. "Stop!" Kathy shouted. "Stop!" In one leap, as if transformed into a wild cat. She jumped out of her chair and rushed to the door, blocking the exit. "You forgot something, my sweet," she purred, but the purr was menacing. "You did rape me, didn't you? It was so horrible." She lowered her eyes and pretended to wipe away a tear. It looked pretty convincing. "You realize I don't even have to file a police report, right? Just complaining to your dad and your dad's dad would be enough." She looked at Molly. "It's scary to think what the consequences could be." "That's a lie," said James in an icy tone. "Get away from the door." The blonde didn't think to move. "But so be it," she said conciliatingly. "I won't say anything to anyone if you agree to pay me a small amount of money every month, that's enough." "You're not making any sense, Kathy." Molly tried to reach for the doorknob, and at the same second, Kathy grabbed the girl's wrist with her sharp fingernails. Let me go, it hurts, Kathy." But the blonde, without loosening her grip, with her free hand, grabbed Molly by the hair. "Not so fast," she hissed. James, squeezing between the girls, covered his fiancée with his own. Molly slumped against the wall, her face pressed into her fiance's back. Kathy, shrieking louder and louder, cut into her ears. "Help, help! Call the police!" "Calm down," James said, canting slightly. "There's been an attack." Safiya continued to shout, "Call the police." Keeping the blonde at arm's length was proving difficult. Kathy scratched and wriggled, hoping to get her nails on Molly. Something glassy fell to the floor with a clinking sound and rolled across the laminate floor. Molly quickly squatted down and grabbed the find first. The vial was small and could easily be hidden in the palm of her hand. The girl glimpsed the label and showed it to her fiancé. "Clophaline," he read it loudly, and then took the vial in his hand and threw it at Kathy. "You're the one who dropped it." Contemptuously, he threw it. The blonde caught the vial and quickly slipped it into the pocket of her robe. "Come on, Molly," James repeated and swung open the front door. "We should go." It was dark in Charles's apartment. William had asked his friend to turn off all the lights. "The light was making my eyes hurt," he explained. "It must be my nerves." They talked in the dark, illuminated only by the smoldering lights of cigarettes. From time to time, long streaks of light ran across the ceiling. Someone drove by with their headlights on. It was tolerable. You could close your eyes, and then your eyes would rest. But now, oblivious to the pain, he flicked the switch himself. Charles squeezed his eyes shut, but William didn't seem to notice the bright beam of light striking his eyes. His face was pale, frightened. "What are you saying?" he asked, shocked by his comrade's words. "What was that just now?" "Is this a joke?" Charles sighed. "I knew Kathy was looking for someone to leak your data to." He repeated, "You know you've got plenty of competitors. Getting to them isn't that big a deal. And they pay for information, and they pay well. All she had to do was choose the highest bidder." "Why would she do that?" "The boil, William. That I didn't give her enough money, kept her full, bought her an apartment. It was enough for all her desires. Did you give her enough?" "Fine." Charles calmed him down. There was enough for a good life, but the girl wanted stability, guarantees. She did not know how to save. It's not in her nature. Marrying you was out of the question, and the years go by. She was afraid that you will play with her, and as her age comes up, you will find someone younger, fresher, and Kathy in circulation on the sidelines of life. So she wanted to be on the safe side to secure her future. Why? William rubbed his eyes. They were starting to hurt again. She didn't tell me, but she could have asked for what she wanted, couldn't she? A bank account, a house, a business. I wouldn't have spared her that. Charles laughed. Women, who the devil can tell when they don't always understand themselves. But she could sell the information, and she wanted it badly. The rumor had already spread among the competitors, and they were all ears. That's when I entered the arena. Made up a pathetic story about how I've been jealous of you all my life because you've always been undeservedly lucky. And so on and so forth. Lying, I hope? Not exactly. Charles shrugged guiltily. I was jealous of you. I was, many years ago, when, remember, you dragged me through the woods almost alive. So I had that sin. I was jealous. Even though I was ashamed that you weren't hurt in the accident, that Molly had a normal mother, not a slutty Nancy. I saw her, William said quietly. Nancy. I didn't want to tell you, but I went to Boston last year, and my parents are buried there. I went to the cemetery to worship the graves, and there was a fresh grave. Nancy. I saw the picture on the monument. I recognized it immediately. Someone from her family was there. I think it was a cousin, a second cousin, maybe a third cousin. I don't remember. Cleaning up her grave. I asked him what happened. Like her lover killed her, either out of jealousy or just drunk. She's always had a lot of admirers, lovers, and jealous men. At first, I wanted to call you and tell you, but then I thought, why? Only to reopen wounds. We've been strangers to her for a long time, said Charles calmly. She was a spoiled girl with a rotten streak. Well, may she rest in peace. She never even saw her son or knew his name. God be with her. The main thing is that you still have your capital, so you have nothing to grieve about, and the children's wedding is tomorrow. Do you think they'll live together? They will, I'm sure. William smiled and hugged his friend. Meanwhile, James and Molly were walking down the street, holding hands. You know, Molly, said the boy, I really like your dress, I really do, I really do. It's cool. You can say that too. Molly fixed the ruffle on the skirt and laughed. It's a real rag. It's just for mopping the floor. James only gripped the bride's hand tighter, brought it to his lips, and kissed the wrist marks left by Kathy's claws. You are the most beautiful in any dress. He said so quietly that it was almost impossible to hear the words. But the girl heard and smiled at her fiancé, shyly and gently. Then I like it too. Her smile became mischievous. That's what I'm going to marry you in tomorrow. James laughed, picked Molly up in his arms, and shouting loudly how much he loved her, began to twirl her around and kiss her on the lips. Is this really love? Molly closed her eyes and imagined their wedding. They would live in a big house and have 3, no, better 4 mischievous children with whom they would enjoy playing catch-up. 2 happy grandfathers, Molly's father William and James's father Charles.